Hello and welcome to episode 238 of the Lookouts podcast. I am joined later on by Tim and Richard as we discuss the super special Armageddon unboxing reveals, talking specifically about the Space Marines, then followed by the Orks. We felt like there wasn't a huge amount to say about the extra bits in terms of the book and the cards, and we also sort of ran out of time because just those two segments alone was quite long. So we didn't talk about them, but, you know, they all look very cool and are excited to see a little bit more about what they will be down the line. So maybe we'll get to talk about those things once we've heard a little bit more about the details of what those elements are. So it's worth noting you can watch along on YouTube where we're doing a little screen share. So if you are more of a visual person, you can head over to YouTube, check us out there and watch and see the miniatures alongside as we talk about them. Alternatively, you can just listen to us over on the audio-only version of the podcast as well. Both are available. Links are normally found down in the description or just a good old Google search. With that all said and done, we will get on with the show. Transitional noise. So to kick it off, we're going to look at the Space Marine portion of the Armageddon box set. The first model they give us is one of the last ones I think they showed us on the live stream, but it's the Captain with Relic Shield. I think it's worth pointing out that we've had one previous Captain with a Relic Shield, but designed up in a sort of Blade Guard style with the tabard and the helmet. And then we've had two different Primaris lieutenants with Relic Shields as well. But this is the first one where he's just sort of in more standard armor and not looking like a Blade Guard. But I personally really like it. I think it's very cool, dynamic pose.
Yeah, I think the original was in the Indomitus box because I think I've got his way.
Yes.
It had like a the fancy word for it is not springing to mind, but it had like a skeleton on the front of the shield.
Yes, like an actual dead skeleton on his shield, and he was sort of holding it. So the shield was on the ground. Yes, well, no, I mean, as opposed to a fake skeleton, a prop skeleton, I assumed it was a real relic that belonged to somebody or was somebody at some point. But yeah, it was on the ground and he was kind of holding it. And then they did more recently a lieutenant version kind of in the same pose, which was interesting. Okay. But he was still in the Blade Guard sort of visual language, whereas this one isn't, which I think is interesting. I don't know if that necessarily means anything. And then the only other Captain with Relic Shield was the more recent Jump Pack one, which would also fit in with this box set because there's a lot of Jump Pack units in this box set. But yeah, as you started talking, Richie, let me know your opinion on this mini.
I don't know if this is the first time this has happened, but we know he's a captain because he's got both feet on a rock.
It's such a jumbo tactical rock.
It's because I'm used to the tactical rock, which is now like the sergeants appear to be using that now. So you know sergeant because they've got the rock. This guy's on the entire rock. I think the mini is really cool. I like that it feels like it's harking back to different eras as well. With the different it feels like they've across the range of these new minis there are callbacks to the different eras of Space Marine armor in there because there are elements to it that don't feel entirely Primaris, like the kind of Roman the kind of Roman soldier stuff to it with the cloaks and like the tabard, not the tabard, whatever the
Terujas.
Is that the straps?
The leathery straps, yeah.
The leathery straps around his groin. That kind of swing around. That's really cool. There's an obscene amount of what are they called? The wax seal things that I've completely forgotten.
Purity seals.
That's what purity seals.
Yeah,
there's got so loads. Many purity seals.
Yeah.
It's so it's really the reason I really love this mini is the reason I don't like another one that we'll come on to. But there's so much dynamicism in the pose, and you can see that he's moving. It's like the wind's blowing with that, and you can see the purity seal text flying there. It's really cool. I think it's fantastic. I do. When they first revealed the mini, I thought it was okay because the head version, I think is fine, but it's not. I don't particularly like it that much. The helmeted versions are both awesome. They're both
Yeah.
really, really cool.
I kind of agree. I'm not a huge fan of the haircuts or like the mini mohawk that he's got, but when they previewed off, which I don't think they've got here. Oh, they do have it here. The different helmets. I kind of particularly like the crest and the old Mark ones. Kind of interesting to see that they've started to do that effectively across all the minis in this Space Marine range. But yeah, I do like it. I think it's got a good amount of dynamic posing, as you're saying, with the purity seals and the cape. Yeah, I mean, I've never been a huge fan of the relic shield design, but it is good. But personally, I would swap it out. But then that's just because of the theme of my Space Marine chapter. So I would swap that out to match.
I think it's cool. I've got lots of Blade Guard in my Imperial Fist list, but I didn't use any of the relic shields that came with them. I bought. I'm pretty sure I got the Forge World.
Right.
As like an upgrade for all. There's a unit in the Forge for Heresy back then, which had their own like storm shields, which were Imperial Fist themed. So I'd gone with those. I don't know if you can still do that. But I think it's a pretty cool shield. I think this one makes a lot more sense because the previous captain where he had like the relic bones on there, it's like that's just gonna get destroyed as soon as you block anything. Whereas I think this one looks cool, but yeah, I think it's awesome. I love the Mark 1. I think the Mark 1 helmet's the coolest one, though. I like that there was like
the Mark 7
style.
You mean?
The proper Space Marine helmet, as far as I would say. The proper one is as well as the new style with like the Roman mohawk on a helmet thing.
Yeah, the crest.
That's one.
That's quite useful. Yeah, but it's interesting that it isn't the Blade Guard style helmet, but then I guess they haven't given him the tabards and stuff. So I think visually it means he could fit in with a regular like squad of intercessors or non-Blade Guard unit better than the Blade Guard specific one, who really only looks like he fits in with the Blade Guard unit. But Tim, you've been silent long enough. Give us your hot take.
Thank you. No, I really like the model. I would have liked to have seen maybe possible different weapon loadouts. I guess that's just because I'd like to see, like to see us have the ability to make our own little Alexis Pollock with like the relic shield and like a power fist, or maybe something more salamandery with like thunder hammer. But this model also reminds me of the Wolfguard battle leader that they recently released as well, because that's quite dynamic with the wind blowing in a certain way. The cape goes the same way. It's kind of got that similar wide stance with the arm outstretched with the shield. Sorry, with the power sword. So yeah, it's a good classic.
Yeah, I do wonder if they will do a multi-part, effectively variant of the captain that might give us some more weapon options. They've sort of done that in the past, and there is a captain kit at the moment with lots of weapon options, but I don't think it comes with a shield. And likewise, when we get to the Orks, they've already previewed there is a multi-part Ork war boss, even though there's a war boss in this kit as well. So I wouldn't be surprised.
I would not be
double up.
I would not be surprised, and I'm going to put on like my 3D artist hat here, if they just have their generic template Space Marine captain that they can just pose in every different way they want inside their chosen 3D tool of choice. So it's really quick for them to mock up concept ideas and stuff as well. So,
yeah, true.
Richie.
Okay.
I was going to say, it is worth clarifying for the listeners who may not be aware of this. As far as we're aware, every mini in this box is push fit and monopose. As far as we're aware. But I think I'm saying that with authority. I might be wrong.
They have said in the live stream that they're push fit for sure. And it sort of makes sense. I think the only variation they're giving us is head options. And from what I remembered, every character and model has a helmet and unhelmeted option, even though some of the times in the live stream, they only showed us one option. I think on this page that we're looking at, they have shown us both variants, which I think is really good. And it is nice because I think sometimes they have just given us a bare head option and no helmets. And a lot of people do like helmets, basically.
I would expect to see this kit be sold in its own with maybe different weapon options if it does follow the Space Wolf kind of captain vibe.
I think what we'd get, though, is a different pose. I don't think they would just give us the exact same model, but with multi-part options. A bit like the Orc war boss. They're like two completely different war bosses, basically, which is extra variation. And that has its own problems where it makes you go, well, as a collector, I want to buy two, but as a gamer, I only need one. And that's a bit frustrating, but also gives us lots of more choice. So it has pros and cons in both ways. Next up is Librarian, which is like a resculpt of the last Finecast version of the Librarian that we had. But he came with a bonus cherub. This one doesn't, but the pose is basically exactly the same. I think it's a very cool pose. I do like it with the staff. I've never been a huge fan of like the weird embossed detail or on the staff, and when they do that on the four swords as well. But that's a very minor nitpick. But I do love it, and it looks like the rocks are sort of flying up in the air as well, which I think is very cool.
I like the theme of the rocks and the bases and stuff. I'm just wondering, how would you replicate that across your sort of base troops?
What, a whole army? Yeah, because they specifically said they've sort of themed this box set to Armageddon, and they've done that with the bases. So, for example, if you look at the captain, there's an orc head or an orc skull at the bottom, and they did show off a few models where they kind of go side by side in terms of a diorama. So it was this librarian. You can put the weird boy next to him, and it looks like they're fighting. And likewise, the two, the captain and the war boss, they kind of like the sculpting of the rocks all sort of flow in the same direction, and they're all facing the right direction. So visually, they look correct. And then we've got things like the banners, which we'll get to when we see it. So it is cool, but it's very stylistically different from what you get with the rest of the Space Marine range. So it would sort of stand out on its own, and maybe would require a bit of, I don't know, green stuffing some of your normal rocks to maybe look a bit more pointy to make them match in with this. But I don't think it would be that noticeable, to be honest. As long as the rim color and the basing's all consistent, I think the style of the rock is minor enough that it wouldn't stand out.
That's fair. I mean, I guess if you just have your key characters on like flamboyant bases, then the rest of the army on just normal bases that have the same color scheme, it's not going to match, but it's not going to matter that much.
Yeah, that's true. If I remember rightly, Richie, you got the last Terminator Librarian, didn't you?
I do have the last Terminator Librarian.
Because I remember you painting up all the runic detail, which we've finally seen sort of transposed onto this armor. Because before, the librarians in Power Armor didn't have that sort of runic details on them.
I can't remember if they did. I've not really done the Space Marine Librarians for a little while, so it might do on a Power Armored one. I didn't. I got a Terminator one because I was specifically building like a Deathwing, entirely Deathwing force at the time. So I got the Terminator Librarian. So I can't speak to it. I do think the runic symbols is cool. They are a right pain to paint. I found when at least I did, because I did the whole paint scheme completely wrong and it looked terrible.
It looked all right.
I thought it'd be really. I really like the Necron. I think it's like the Necron glow or Tesseract glow.
Yeah, Tesseract glow. Yeah,
paint. I think that looks really cool. What it doesn't look cool on is when you use that to represent like the glow of a librarian, because when you put it on top of blue armor, it just makes him look like he's pissed himself.
Nice.
I think blue and green kind of clash, so they're not, let's say, contrasting enough.
It didn't look very good. So, but I think I do kind of dig this model. The thing I like the most about it is it visualizes the staff being key to the librarian in like a kind of Gandalf kind of way, like a wizard kind of way.
Like he's using it
in almost every miniature they've had for any kind of librarian. It feels for years they've had a force weapon, which is just literally like their beat stick thing, or whether it's an axe or a staff or a sword, and their magic, their psychic powers are coming out of their hand. And
true.
This time, it's like the psychic powers. Everything appears to be like part of his energy, but also through the staff. Like the staff,
It's like a
is really
conduit.
huge.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of cool. The kind of focusing that element that the staff is like a conduit for his powers, which I think is cool.
And I really like the sort of librarian symbol on the Iron Halo. I think that's really nice. And obviously they've repeated that motif on his glove as well. Yeah, but it's a cool mini. I think it's very good. And there is a helmeted option, which they do show us. And yeah, you can see the rocks being really dynamic. There's some glow on the backpacks as well. And yeah, I mean, personally, I really like the helmeted option, but that's just how I would do it for my army.
I am wondering how much of the bases are sculpted or how much is like done after the fact, because in the sense that
in terms of these little stony bits here,
I think something like the little stony bits, like is that just part of what's on the sprue, or because sometimes when they have these like really nice cool dynamic bases, a lot of that detail is actually just built into the sprue, and then you glue it together and it's there. But I'm wondering how much of like the smaller elements, especially the random twigs and branches that appear to be on them, makes me wonder how much of that is.
Well, the little twiggy bits is just actual like grass that they've stuck on. The tiny little stones actually, I mean, on the right hand side under his foot, it sort of looks like that could be part of the plastic, like molded base. But then the bit under the big rock looks more like that's stone stuck down on PVA. It's a bit hard to tell, to be honest. So yeah, I don't know. I think we'd have to see the sprues to determine. I think that just looks too detailed to be injection molded plastic, personally. But yeah, I don't actually know. I guess when we look at the next character, the chaplain with a jump pack, let's have a look at his base. Yeah, because it's so well blended, I would say they've applied some sand or like stones to that base. I imagine things like the skull would be part of the base, unless that detail is literally on the base as opposed to something you stick to a black base, because you get the black base that you then stick detail to, or you get a like sculpted base with the detail baked into it. And I guess it could be either, to be honest.
Because
I think the skulls are from the skull kit, and they're just like cut and glued on.
If it's like other push fit kind of kits, so when they get to the big boxes, there'll be like an empty hex.
Yeah,
shape
you stick stuff on,
which you can stick some kind of base basing
in
thing
fact,
onto.
That is what it is, because I remember in the live stream they were talking about the sprues, and they said something like, "Oh, for you base aficionados, you get like a bag of 30 bases." So they're not like they're on the sprue and part of the model; they are just black basic bases.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of this is probably maybe. I mean, the skull might be one of those bits of detail that goes into a hex, but definitely all the stone sort of undulating terrain and blending it in with the tactical rock that the chaplain's off of, that's clearly all added on, likewise with the twigs and stuff.
I guess I'm partly wondering, are they going to be releasing some kind of like twigs basing kit or something? Because it's like a theme across a lot of the minis is these like twigs and like dead branches on the bases. I'm wondering, is that just going to be something that is going to be emblematic of the miniatures, but it's entirely you have to figure out how to do that yourself rather than with anything that Games Workshop will supply?
Yeah, I think that's just, someone's gone out to their garden and got some twigs and stuck it down just to make it a bit more interesting, to sort of represent a desert, right? It's
like, if there's any maybe like pro basing people, just send me a DM to let me know how that's done.
I mean, I've done literally exactly that with my Minotaurs, and I literally went into my garden and found some dried up grass, and I just stuck it down and varnished them, and then they're still there to this day, several years later. Yeah, so it's quite straightforward. Okay. You just got to scout around for the right sort of spindly bits of root or grass or something to do that. I'm sure there are basing companies that will sell stuff like that as well. Anyway, let's move on to the chaplain. This one's a bit more hit and miss for me. I think the helmet is very cool. I like that. It's basically this banding detail on the jump pack and on the legs, and that banding detail on the legs, I think we've seen, is very reminiscent to both the Inquisitor Courtiers and the Sanguinary Garde. Might not be exactly the same, but it just feels like it's detail to fill up space, but it doesn't look particularly great personally for me. I don't mind things. I know I presume it's like a smoke grenade or something that's attached the model to the base via a little puff of cloud. I don't mind that so much. I know lots of people have hated on it. I think the poses just looks a little bit odd, but maybe that's just the angle of the model. But overall, I think it's quite good, and there is a lot of nice detail on it. What do you guys think?
I hate the smoke.
Oh, okay.
It ruins the mini for me, because from the front it looks cool. Because you can imagine that from the front, you can imagine the smoke is like somehow connected to the jump pack or something, and it goes. But it's like it's slightly unclear. Like, what's the momentum of the miniature? Is he going up? Is he going down? I think he's actually. I think
jumping down.
I think he's just going forwing He just happens to be in the
doing
air.
a little leap.
Yeah, well, it's almost like he is like at the point of the motion, he's just going forward. He's going neither up nor down. Is my take on it, because looking at like the movement of the purity seals and his like all the other tassels and stuff on it makes it feel like he's just going forward, as opposed to up or down.
Yeah, I mean, these two purity seals look like there's a slightly more downward motion potentially, but it could also just be a forward motion.
Yeah.
I mean, the ironic thing is the way they do the purity seals implies these were actually put on upside down, because actually the purity seal should hang from the bottom and then flow backwards if we were thinking about it technically. But no, they don't do that, because that would also look a bit odd. So instead, it's just pointed in the direction. They're affixed in the direction they need to point, basically, at any point on any model.
I hadn't thought of it like that way before, Phil, and now that's in my
this is stupid.
That's in my nitpicking mind now, that looks odd, because on the Crozier's Arcanum or Arcanum,
yeah,
that does have the seal.
Correctly.
That's the seal is like the right kind of way.
Yeah,
it's like, as you say, the ones on the actual. Well, I don't know if they are wrong, because if they're standing, maybe it's just so they would be draped backwards. But then they could easily they could just get caught in the jets.
Maybe that's the point, though. Is they hang them backwards for a bit of flair, so they flutter backwards.
I think the pose is cool, but some of the details, like the smoke and the seals on the shoulder, on the jump pack, look a bit odd. I've never liked the extra flaps that jump packs have now, that they started adding
the fins at the top.
The fins.
Yeah.
I've never liked them. It sounds like you don't like the extra like gold, and this is like a ready gold.
Yes.
Trim.
I like that. On.
I quite like that. I think it adds to the differentiation of this isn't just a Vanguard. This isn't just a Vanguard or a jump pack marine wearing but painted black. There's like additional details to it, which I think is cool. I like the fact that he doesn't have an abundance of unnecessary weapons. He's got his pistol and an empty holster, and he's got his croziers. There's no, and he's got his book. It's like, when you look at the captain's got like the shield, his sword, a scabbard, another sword, and a pistol in a holster as well.
Is his pistol missing a clip? It doesn't look like there's a clip on there, or if it is, it's going all the way in.
I feel that
it's a tiny clip.
The clips don't like extend.
Shade them. Yeah, maybe it goes all the way in and then it like ejects out potentially.
I'm just going to Google Absolver bolt pistol now.
Maybe that's how it is.
To see there's different versions. From looking at the pictures, it doesn't. Sometimes they have a little clip. Sometimes they have a very small clip, like in this particular
I
mini.
guess it makes it a bit more streamlined. But it does, just makes me question, like, oh, it's a bit unusual. But yeah, I think it's correct. I love little skulls on the side. I think that's cool detail. It's interesting that they've done what clearly looks like a grenade or something to give it a smoke puff, but there's also that mini like ankle vent that they could have had it coming out of. But then maybe they thought, well, we couldn't just have the smoke coming out of one of them, but not the other. And I think they've designed it in a way where if you didn't like that puff of smoke, you could just attach it to something else instead, like a rod or a different tactical rock, maybe.
Maybe just to pick up on a few points you've made there, like you would have to trim the smoke off and then probably reattach it to where the vent is near the foot, just to make it a little bit more believable. But with the leg sort of the leg armor, the embellishment that's going on, I think that's probably just to bring it in line with the other chaplains that they've released in the past, and more recently as well. Not to go on about Spaceballs, but the Wolf Priest has a very similar design. Just saying.
I think that banding's become. It feels like it's been on even older miniatures, but it's definitely something we've seen a lot more recently with Primaris since they've tried to bling them up a bit more from their original.
I genuinely think it is to bring like continuity between all the different chaplains at the moment, and so that like if you see that banding, it's just like a nice visual indicator that that is a chaplain, or that's how they style their armor. I would like to see a slightly different pose though, kind of like. Oh, what's the Blood Angel executioner? Astarath? Is that how you say his name?
Okay.
Astarath the Grim. Not necessarily double-handed over the head striking down, but maybe an almighty swing from the side kind of thing.
Right, a bit more of a baseball bat sort of style swing. Because here he's just holding it, and it doesn't look, whereas if it was a bit more behind him and looks like he's about to strike someone, I think it would look better.
I just want to see something like with a bit more like, I don't know, like it's a chaplain, so they have conviction and they're zealots, and I want to see a bit more, I don't know, emphasis behind their killing blow.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Instead of just like a bonk.
Yeah. One last thing, because I'm conscious we don't want to spend forever just talking about one mini. But Richie, when you mentioned about the fins on the back, I've noticed loads of people have been making either just regular like assault jump pack troops or Vanguard vets, and they've actually been using the old Space Marine like jump pack style, which is a bit more boxy with the bigger vents at the top. And I do think there's something really nice about that old style jump pack, and the fact that they all had the like jump pack harness, like the harness that effectively attaches from the torso to the jump pack itself, and that these newer kits don't have that. But I guess it sort of frees up that chest piece for extra detail. But yeah, it seems to be a bit of a trend. I've noticed lots of people online doing that as like a kit bash, basically.
I'm not a fan of the bunny ears. I don't like them. But
yeah, I think they just did it once and then like, well, we're stuck with it now, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, there's
one briefing. I think it's cool to see a return, because I was just checking up on, because I saw on this, I thought it was really cool the way the Rosarius is like wrapped around his wrist, and I was wondering, have they done that before? And I was looking at the previous minis for chaplains, and it seems like when they've done Primaris chaplains more recently, maybe can, but at least on my brief just check, the chaplains have been having the iron halo on their armor, so they haven't had the Rosarius, because at least historically in the older editions, the Rosarius is what gave the chaplain their 4-up mug.
I see. Interesting.
So it's cool to see that they've lost the iron halo. They lost the iron halo, but he's like wearing that Rosarius around his like his whatever the fancy word is for your arm gauntlet. There, I think that's a cool addition. But I think that I'm conflicted on the pose in different ways, because like the smoke and the purity seals. But I do like the fact they've got those areas back, and I think that's cool.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, next up we've got more jump pack troops, which is the Vanguard veterans, which we had one model previewed a while back that was quite roundly mocked for looking a bit too plain. So here we've got a few different ones. We've got a double-handed power sword, which personally, I don't actually like the look of. I think it's just a bit of an awkward pose. Let's see.
I like it.
I'm with Tim. It's very,
You
very
both
cool.
like it. I mean, I
think
like
it's cool.
the things like we used to get the eviscerators, which were like the double-handed chainswords. I don't know. There's something odd about that power sword. I think it's because you've got the hilt here and the guard. Then you've got some purity seals wrapped around, and then you've got the bottom of the blade above it. So you've actually got a really short blade, and actually this mounting piece here above the purity seal should be down here and covered by the purity seal, and this bit here should just be all blade. So that to me just seems a bit wrong. Like that is a poorly designed power sword, because what's this bit between here and, obviously for audio people this isn't as obvious, but between the hilt and the bottom of the blade where that purity seal is just what, all plain? Like that makes no sense whatsoever from a design point of view.
I agree with you, but I also think you hit the nail on the head, and hopefully Flesh Terror players will love this. But yeah, just change it for a fat old power sword, and that thing will look sick.
Yeah,
on the tabletop.
I think so.
Could be like your new Gabriel Seth, rest in peace.
It'll be
jump pack dude.
Interesting to see if a multi-part kit comes along down the line with different weapon options, or if it's like, no, they're just all power swords now. I suspect we will get the weapon options though.
It's a cool
think it's really
range,
cool.
but it's. I think. Sorry, Rich. It's a cool range, but
yeah. Whereas these ones, like the ones on the ground, personally, I think look the coolest. Like this guy on the left, he's got a different sort of mark of leg armor where you don't really have the visible knee pad, but you've got the studs, the bonding studs. That looks really cool. And again, you've got a Mark 7 helmet, and I think the pose is really cool on him. This one's also pretty good, where he's up in the air. Yeah, I like both of those two.
I am not a fan of the invisible knee pad. I don't mind the knee pad with studs. That's absolutely fine because it's kind of obscured that void space. Yeah, not having, I don't know what it is, but not having that groove there.
Yeah, because all they've done is they've just taken out the panel line that's a circle that sort of denotes the knee. But interestingly, his other leg actually has it, so it's specifically because of the bonding studs, I guess, that they've removed it, and they are very small bonding studs. But I guess that means you can hopefully do it without the weird, the skewing effect of them due to the limitation of the injection plastic molding techniques, which we've had on certain shoulder pads, for example, in the past. And the use of the gold helmets, I think, is really good. And then, yeah, these two look good as well, I think. Are there any sort of standouts out of these that you guys like or dislike, or are you fan of the whole?
I say
kit?
Keep them on the ground. Like I don't actually like them being on rocks and stuff. I get it; they want to be dynamic and jumping around and look like they're landing on stuff or taking off from stuff. But I just say, just do that, but just keep them grounded.
Yeah, I can sort of see that, because I actually think the grounded ones do look better out of these. I mean, so the one on the right, they've done a really good job of like hiding the join. So when you look at it face on, he does look like he's floating. I just don't think the poses of Space Marines floating in the air looks as cool as like this guy who's either just landed or he's just doing a cool stylish pose. And it's like all the Heresy assault guys with jump packs are all on the ground, and they actually look pretty good. This guy sort of is just running, maybe less so, but I don't necessarily mind the small rocks and the attachments. It's the sort of thing I would do personally myself, but I just don't think they've got enough necessarily height to make them look particularly interesting. But in the modern world, you don't want them several inches off the ground, because then they'll either be too top heavy or they're much more visible to being shot at based on the coveralls or whatever. So, and it also takes up a lot of space on the sprue, I imagine. So I think there's a myriad of different reasons why they've kept them like this. But overall, I think they're pretty good.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that the ones who are on the ground are the ones with basic war gear, and I wonder if there's a reason for that, because the two who've just got bolt pistols and power swords,
Right.
are
Bolt pistol, power sword.
as far as I can tell,
Because
the standard ones. Because then you've got the plasma pistol, who's the plasma pistol one, who I'm assuming that the one who's got the skull and the wings on his head is the sergeant. That's my assumption, which may be completely wrong. My assumption is the one with the wings on his helmet is the sergeant. So he's up on a rock. Plasma pistol's up on a rock, and the big eviscerator style power sword is also on a rock. So I don't know if that's like a way to help you to determine who the special weapons or something are.
Maybe, yeah. I think you're right, because he's also got I don't know if the crest is different. It's obviously different from him. But yeah, the winged crest, the winged skull on the helmet makes him look like the sergeant, even though he hasn't got the plasma pistol. Whereas normally the sergeant would have a plasma pistol, so you would assume it'd be this guy. So
yeah, I'm also
maybe the helmet's isn't denoting anything.
I'm also I'm very torn on the two-handed one, because I don't because of the fact that the purity seal's just wrapped around just bare metal or something. And my assumption is there was a meeting when they were designing the mini. I know lots of, because I think if it's just a massive sword with the purity seal wrapped around it, that would look really cool. But I could imagine there'd be a meeting where someone said, well, that wouldn't actually be able to happen because it would just be melted by the power sword as when it turns on. So because I remember,
because it's power sword.
Because there was one of the blade guard had the model where he's like cleaning his sword on like like cloth or something. He's cleaning his sword, and I remember when I saw how people saw that, and people saying, "Well, you won't be able to do that. You don't need to clean a power sword. Just turn it on, and it will like you have to wash the blood off a power sword. It'll just incinerate. It'll be gone." So I do wonder if there was like lots of like conversations around how they wanted this to like. That's the reason it looks this way, because it does look. It's hard to tell from the minis, but it doesn't look necessarily that the actual blade doesn't look that much longer than on the regular version of the power sword. But it does look really cool.
But what I find also odd is, so you've got just above the purity seal, you've got effectively like an extra bit of hilt that the blade attaches to, but then it goes inwards. So the purity seal isn't wrapping around the bit above. It feels like it should extend out further. So the thickness of the blade goes really thin where the purity seal is, which just seems a bit odd.
I have a thought about that, for what that could be, for when we see the full kit, is that this, I don't know, have they said what it's called, this power sword?
Is that another bit of handle, do you reckon?
I'm wondering if it's another bit of handle, so there'll be a alternate version of this where it doesn't have the purity seal around it, but that's what the other hand is.
But then why would you have your hand above the crossguard? That makes no sense.
I don't know if you want to be holding it more like a lance, like a staff or something. Or staff.
Yeah, maybe.
I wonder if there's alternative, if that weapon has additional lore or something to it that we'll see later on.
Maybe.
Because otherwise the blade itself looks kind of small compared to the other.
Yeah, I think all someone needs to do is just with a knife trim that bit off, so it looks like the blade extends downwards, and then it will be fine. I can't tell what that says, but weirdly it looks like it says McCrag on that blade, but maybe that's just my ultramarine bias going on there. Maybe it says Angelus instead, which probably does say Angelus, but who knows. I'm not always sometimes that keen on that sculpted in detail. I don't mind it so much when it's like a little cross or something, but when it's a word, great for painting, but I think personally it just seems a bit faffy. But yeah, they look pretty good. Next up, we've got the Ancient, one of many Ancients. I think everyone owns one by now. I think I'm pretty sure since 8th edition we've had an Ancient in every box, because there was like a standard one, in tactical armor in 8th edition. In 9th edition, we got the Blade Guard Ancient. Maybe in 10th edition we actually didn't get one, but we did get a standalone Ancient for sure, like a multi-part kit one. So this will be the 4th one, I believe, that they've come out with, excluding chapter-specific ones, because they did the Ultramarines one quite recently, and also you've got the Company Command also comes with an Ancient. So I think, if my maths is correct, there's at least 5+ Ancients floating around. This one's cool. It's got Armageddon specific detail sculpted onto it. So the word Armageddon across the banner is sculpted in, as are these orc heads with the flames, which I think is pros and cons. So I think if you are someone that loves the idea of theming it to Armageddon, that's great. If you are someone that didn't want the Armageddon theme, that's terrible, and you're kind of stuck with it. But it's easy enough to probably, at the very least with the Armageddon, you could easily just fill that in and then freehand something else on. You are still kind of probably stuck with the orc skulls, I think, but you could probably cut those off or something. And as I've already said, there's already half dozen other Ancients floating around. But I think it's just a really dynamic pose. So I do like it. And again, separate helmet option for it. And then they specifically called out the big circle below the double eagle is plain for transfers to go on, and likewise the sort of iron halo at the top, where they put the company number in or squad number in, that's plain as well. So lots of space to do stuff, basically. What are your guys' opinion on it?
It's a cracking banner.
Yeah, it does look good.
It's not, for me, there's not much more to say to it. You hit everything on the head about it. Again, it's another like pose with like a lot of dynamic and visual effects applied to it, which is quite nice, and it's different from the other Ancient that we've seen. I am, as you said, with the pros and cons of having Armageddon sort of engraved in. It does obviously make writing out the word a lot easier, but I'd still like to have that choice in my mind. I think what would have been a nice little touch is maybe if you could have it flattened out, filled in, but then actually have the transfer for the word Armageddon.
Yes, yeah, that would be good.
At least that would give people the option to put it on there or not. So people who have difficulty painting these details or just don't want to can still theme their army around this current edition's campaign of Armageddon, or just do what they want. Print out their own custom transfers.
True. Richie, what do you think of the mini?
I have a strong opinion on it, which is
I presume that's not good.
Which is, with one change, I think it'd be very good, but as it is, I don't like it at all.
Okay.
Because I can't get past the fact that the banner itself appears to be defying gravity, and it's held at a 45-degree angle, and it is not falling downwards in a 45-degree angle.
Okay,
that's why. So I'm looking. You'd have to, in my opinion, to make this actually good, is you need to just cut at the wrist, rotate the wrist slightly a bit, so it's angled slightly more upright, and then it's great. As it stands, I can't not see the fact that even if he's swinging it round, like waving it forward.
Well, I think he's just picked it up. Basically, he's like mid-picking it up and doing a heroic thing.
It should be. To me, it just doesn't look right. It doesn't look. It doesn't feel like it's part. Like it doesn't feel like it would be in that. It feels like it should be. It's fabric. It should be.
Because if you look at the back, you can see the folds and how it is sort of bunching up with gravity, although you don't necessarily really notice that from the front per se.
It's bunching up where he's like holding it with his fist.
Yeah,
he's holding it with his hand like that, so that you can see his face behind it.
Well, exactly, because if it just was falling down, it would be in front of his face, and
the other side where he's not holding it, for me, it feels like maybe it's meant to be that he's like swinging it round, and that's why it's that way. But it doesn't quite give that vibe to me, so I would want to rotate his wrist and make it look a bit better. And on other than that, I think it's cool. The details are fantastic. It's just the angle of it that feels a bit odd.
Right.
And I would add on the topic of it saying having Armageddon written on it. I did just I think it would be cool if there was ways to customize that so it doesn't have to be Armageddon. I'm assuming there'll be a alternative version in the pipeline as well, which doesn't have that. But I did realize it's kind of interesting that it's weird that it would be an Armageddon banner at Armageddon.
Well, it's I guess it's, so you saying in military terms, you would get a kind of campaign banner after the campaign rather than before.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know the
like
logic behind it, but maybe.
Oh, just in my head, if you were like, because the banner would be for like your regiment, your detachment, where and to talk about the things you have done, and it's celebrating the fact unless it's referring to a previous battle of Armageddon, and that's what it's like. Yeah, it's meant to be. Hey, don't you remember us? We kicked your asses before, and we come back. If that's the vibe for it, then that's cool. If it's like if it's meant to symbolize this current campaign of Armageddon, it's like, guys, you haven't won yet.
Well, yeah, so they've all got campaign badges on them, like I think some of it is sculpted that we see here. I think the left sort of the three legs of the banner, I think that's the campaign badge that we see also as transfers on the models and sculpted on some of the wrists and stuff, on the legs on some of the models. And we had that with the Indomitus campaign. The Indomitus box had Indomitus campaign badges on them. So I think logically, if they're given a campaign badge to wear during the campaign, I guess they've also done a special special banner for them for that particular campaign. And they're like, oh, cool, we get to go to Armageddon, which means we get to wave the new flag around. I mean, that's good motivation for any Space Marine, I would have thought. Who doesn't like collecting
like a new flag?
Trinkets and badges and flags and stuff, yeah. I could see people getting behind it, but yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, in an ideal world, what you would have is, as Tim pointed out, either the Armageddon word would be a transfer, or maybe the banner itself, like the scroll piece, would be a separate piece, and maybe you could have like 5 different alternatives, and likewise the campaign graphic underneath, you could have alternatives, so you could do the 5 most popular campaigns within 40k, and you could swap those out to your heart's content. Maybe. I don't necessarily think they would do that, and I don't think they would do another Ancient, because we already have a multi-part Ancient kit, so I don't think they would do that. It is interesting that they are now sort of forcing all the Mark 7 helmets on us, because if you liked your Primaris Mark 10 helmets, you've got basically all the characters. This one only seems to have a Mark 7 option, which I don't know how I feel about that. But then I've got enough spare Mark 10 heads. It's not a problem to just swap it out for
it looks
a different one.
It looks to be a fairly standard helmet. It's like you could put any helmet.
Yeah, I think so. But it is interesting that, like, you like Mark 7, don't you? Have a load of Mark 7, everyone. Just take it. You don't get a choice. We're like forcing it down you. We're going to make you like it. Speaking,
I don't think Mark 7 is being forced on anybody. From my opinion, I think everyone. I think logically everyone should be happy that Mark 7 has returned.
I think most people are, to be fair.
I think there'll be others who have grown up with the newer edition, the newer armor, or just really like that style armor. But for me, there's something beautifully nostalgic about the Mark 7. For me, it's a real Space Marine helmet, and that's just why
I've always thought the kind of grill portion always looked a little bit silly, whereas the kind of current helmet looks more in keeping, a bit more, I don't know, serious. But then I kind of like the grill because it is iconic as well, to be fair. But yeah, now we're on to the meat and potatoes, the most boring thing ever, but actually it is still quite cool, which is the new updated intercessors, which I don't know how people feel about this, because yes, it's great that you get different options now. So you get your Mark 7 helmets. You've got, as you can see here, some very cool I don't even know what mark this is, but a different torso design. And it's cool that you get all those different variations. But as I was saying to Dan yesterday, I already own 40 intercessors, 30 of which are all painted up, because I got scammed with the concept of building out different weapon options. So I've got one unit of stalkers, two of the regular bolt rifles, and I was building a veteran intercessors when that was a thing with the auto bolt rifle version. Is worth noting that in this kit they show off there's one stalker and one auto bolt, and then all the rest are the standard bolt rifles. So they've still got that variation. And part of me suspects one of the reasons why they might have felt the need to redo the kit is that those old intercessor kits had all the different weapon options for the different patterns of bolters, and that's not replicated in the rules. So it's probably a very confusing thing for a new player. And sort of just pointless. So they've gone, cool, well, we can swap out all that space now for cool variations and stuff like that. So the guy with the chainsaw, who I'm assuming is a sergeant, looks very cool. Again, on a mini tactical rock, but that's he's got his little campaign badge trinket hanging down his waist. And I think also maybe the transfer, I can never remember what these side shield bits are on his waist, but that I think is the actual campaign badge in terms of the transfer, as opposed to this thing, which is maybe a campaign trinket. But yeah, over the top on the purity seals for this guy. And then if we go through them, guy with a pistol, guy with the underslung grenade launcher, minus the grenades, bandolier. Here's the guy with the stalker bolt actually looking through the scope, which I think is very cool. Guy changing his ammo, which I think was the one that they previewed earlier a few weeks back. Guy with a knife, just a standard guy on a mini tactical rock. Auto bolt rifle, or spec scan, which are all really cool poses, I have to say. And then a guy throwing a grenade, and that's just some more close-up detail. So I do like all the different options. I think the poses are actually really cool. I think the sort of lack of too much detail is quite nice. I don't know. They're definitely better than the current kits, or maybe I'm just used to the current kits, but I don't feel the burning desire to build these because I've got so many as it is. But yeah, Richie, give me your hot take on these.
Well, you know, I am the first person to always say I've painted too many Space Marines. But if I was going to paint some Space Marines, I would paint these ones because what's cool about these is, as someone who has painted a lot of Space Marines, what gets boring about painting Space Marines is they're all the same.
Hmm.
And what's cool about this, at least with this current set, which is they're all pushed and they're all individual, every model is different. So I think you get 10 in the box, and so you got all these different. And I'm sure you can like swap their heads around a bit to give a little bit of personalization. But they look cool, and some of them have got different shoulder pads or different leg pads. So it's not, if you're painting these, each one has a lot of character to it, and it's not very monotonous. So I think that's cool. I like that.
Yeah, I think it's potentially 5 models with alternates, because if we look at this guy here with the grenade and his torso, I think he's the same one as this guy. Same torso, same leg position, but then different arms, basically. So I think there is some repetition in terms of the bodies, I suspect, but obviously different shoulder pads. This one's almost like the... is it Mark IV, the Corvus one, Corvus pattern where there's no trim on the shoulder pad?
Mm-hmm.
Mark 6.
No,
Mark 6.
Yeah,
that's it. So yeah, I like the mix of other shoulder pads as well. But yeah, I sort of suspect there might be a bit of repetition in the torsos. I could be wrong, but I think it is the same one, but with different bits.
I think you're right. I think there's a couple that are similar. But I think they all of these look like individual guys.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's cool. And I do think you gotta let it go about the different bolters still.
Here's the thing.
And the reason I say that, with the most big mod, I don't think you realize how long ago that was. That was a long time ago. It was 2 editions ago.
Yeah, 2 editions ago, which is 6 years, right?
Yeah, there's a long time ago I was there too. I did that same thing. I built. I remember building Imperial Fists with the assault bolter because all the DACA, but it was useless to run because it had no AP. And there was a Stalker bolt rifle which had a very brief meta until something got patched to make them not overpowered anymore.
Yeah. But here's the thing. I'm not really advocating that those rules come back, although there was an element of crunch to them. But then I hated the fact that I felt inclined to do them WYSIWYG, even though no one else was really doing that. I quite like the fact that they've consolidated them, and now they're just they're mixed in within the units, and it's not like one squad just full of them, for example. Of one particular type. So I like that they've kept them all in here, basically. So I think that is better. I think that the way they've done it here is really good.
I mean, I don't like the way. I mean, I do like the visual element to it. What I find I've been conflicted that so far this edition, rules wise, is that, and it started in the previous edition as well. I think that the rules of the bolter has to effectively is all types of bolters into one. So it's both heavy and it's assault.
Yes.
Yeah. I felt made them a bit too good, and that there's nothing they couldn't do. But we're not talking about that though. We're talking about the minis, and I think the minis are very cool. And I actually think these are very cool, especially if you're just starting out Space Marines. These are the best looking Space Marines that there's probably ever been. These are better looking than all the intercessors have been. Easily.
I completely agree. Yeah, I'm just less inclined to want to build and paint them because I've already got another 10 still built ready to paint that I feel like I would have to deal with first. To be fair, though, I was converting them up to be veterans, so at least they could be something different, but current rules-wise don't really have anything to represent them. But these guys are really cool, and I like the mix of different armors. And as you say, that means it's going to be a lot more visually interesting when you're painting them up. And they do look more, each individual Space Marine looks more like an individual rather than a sort of boilerplate, very generic Space Marine. And I think that was the one thing that people were really criticizing Primaris when they first came out, is that they were just a bit too bland. And I don't mind, like, these are sort of bland in terms of they don't have too many adornments on their armor. There's the odd purity seal and the odd trinket, but then even the standard intercessor kit had that as well. But it was all the shoulder pads were the same, all the helmets were the same. This guy's got some rivets on his helmet and a different mark of shoulder pad. Some of them have the sort of kneeless legs, I think. And some of them have some almost like sort of crusade. I think maybe it's Mark II crusade style torso pieces and stuff. So I do like those sorts of elements to them. And I think the posing of all the minis are really cool as well. So yeah, I think it's very strong. Oh, one thing I'll point out because it's here. I do not think this is at all accurate or appropriate where you've done a kill marking as a bullet design and you've embossed it into your gun. That makes no sense logically whatsoever. Has this guy literally chiseled out some bullet shapes into the side of his precious relic weapon? I don't think so. From a painting point of view, yes, I get it, but I sort of feel like that could have just been a transfer that you could have applied. That my one nitpick on this kit, I would say. Tim, what's your thought on these guys?
It kind of irks me that the grenade launcher hole is the same size as the barrel hole.
Ooh, hold on. Let's go find him.
I was torn on that as well, Tim, because
it's so pedantic. I love it.
It isn't.
Go back.
Because I didn't want to bring it up I didn't want to bring it up. I had thought about it when I saw it. It's like, oh, that was odd.
Oh, yeah.
But then when you realize how big a grenade, so I don't know if they've drilled it whoever did the minis drilled it that way, or if that's how it just comes on the kit. But usually, a bolt, like a bolter shell, is huge. It's like the size of a grenade.
The shell is huge, but in the scale of Warhammer 40k, you would imagine that a grenade shell would be bigger. Just ever so slightly. I am being really pedantic and facetious about this. It doesn't bother. It doesn't bother me at all. It was just something I noticed.
Yeah, I think here's the thing: you could easily drill yours out ever so slightly bigger.
Yeah, easily.
But that is quite funny.
Yeah, easily. I'm just hoping that the legs. I know it's a push fit kit, but when they release this as an individual kit, you're able to maybe take the old leg greaves from the old Intercessors kit and slap them over the top. I want my knee pads back.
Well, there are knee pads here, or was it more?
Not on all of them, Phil. Not on all of them.
Well, that's true. I'm trying to remember if they said the shoulder pads were attached. So
Sure.
you are stuck with the shoulder pad, basically. Oh, I see what you mean here.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. What you need to be good at is very good at, scraping in a panel line
I
with
don't have that
a
time.
knife or a chisel. That's what you need to do.
I
suspect it'll all be one in one. To be fair,
I think in the standalone kit you'll get options, and the shoulder pads won't be like forcefully stuck on because everybody would just complain. But yeah, I think it's a pretty cool intercessor kit as well.
I was want to say, in the interest of historical fairness, and I have shared this in the chat for you guys, the holes of the auxiliary grenade launcher have on the current intercessors are the same size as well.
Oh well, there you
So
go.
it's the very. I mean, I'm not saying I disagree with you, Tim, at all. I think I do agree. It should look a bit different, but that is historically how it's done. One thing additional thing I do want to say is cool is it's nice to see a sergeant in like the official default sculpt who hasn't been reduced to being a chainsword and a pistol guy. It's like he's got his bolt rifle and he's got his chainsword, which I don't believe I've seen before, at least so prominently. And I think that's cool because because whenever you've got the sergeant will always have in gameplay terms that at least more recently. Back in the day, the sergeant wouldn't have had a bolt gun; he'd have had a pistol. But in more recent times, he has a bolt rifle as well. It's like when you're 24 inches away, you're firing 10 bolt rifles, or with a squad of intercessors. And when in combat, you're using the chainsword. So I like the fact he's got a close combat weapon in this one, as in any close combat weapon, or close combat weapon being its own profile, etc. But he's got a close combat weapon, and he's got his bolt rifle, and he's a sergeant. So I think that's a cool thing that we're seeing there.
That's true. And you'll notice his purity seals were stuck on slightly sideways.
Because the wind's blowing, Phil. But
because that's the way the wind's blowing. Yeah. Okay. Well, they're pretty good. And my other favorite unit, the Eradicator Squad with heavy bolters. So I guess there's a few interesting things to say here. One is, will they be a separate data sheet because they are, or than the standard Eradicators with the multi-melters? So will it be Eradicator Squad, and then there's different weapon options, or is each one going to be a different data sheet, which possibly the case? And then the other thing is the blast shield that they all have. I'm so on the fence about whether I like it or not.
I don't like it
because they have already done heavy bolters on Gravis models already with the heavy intercessors. They don't have the shields on, and they look really cool. Here, I don't hate it because it actually ties in with the Inceptors, which have like that similar blast shield. So it ties it in with another Gravis unit. So I sort of like it. But this unit fundamentally shows you the flaw of them, in that it's a big, ugly, blank space that they have literally had to freehand detail on to make it look interesting because it's kind of ugly. So here they've done some checkers, and then on the other one they've done like a big. That one's actually plain. And I think one of them they did like a 4 cross on it. Maybe it was on the sergeant. But they've sort of had to paint some detail on, and it just seems sort of weirdly odd. And it looks like from like the back, the heavy bolters just magically going through a wall. It just always looks a bit odd. And they had a similar issue with the heavy bolt or the bolt pistols, whatever they're called, on the Inceptors. But I've sort of grown. They're sort of grown on me over time. But yeah, it's an interesting kit. I think it's very cool. I know. We'll start with Richie because I know he has an interesting opinion on this particular model, which is the Sergeant, where he's either run out of ammo and he's chucked. You can see the clip is on the ground, and then he's got his bolt pistol out to do a heroic last stand. And Richie, you take offense to that, don't you?
I think it's the stupidest pose I've ever done of this variety. They've done it a couple of times with other units where the sergeant's got his pistol out. I think on the Hellblasters they do something similar. This just looks a bit dumb. because he's got this giant heavy bolter. And I play Space Marine. I've played Space Marine 2. I've played a lot of Space Marine 2. This can happen if you're playing the heavy bolter. If you've got the heavy bolter, it's like, I think the fact that he's holding it, he's like cradling it with one arm. He's dropped the ammo clip on the floor. He's cradling his heavy bolter with one arm and using his pistol with the other. It just feels a little bit weird. I don't think it. I don't feel it was necessary. I think they could have done something more interesting to differentiate. I understand they wanted to do something to differentiate the sergeant from the rest of the squad. I get that. It just feels a bit weird to me that he's got his giant gun that he's like holding like a baby, and he's got his pistol out. I just think that's a bit silly.
I sort of get your point, and I think it is reasonably valid criticism. They've done it a few times. It's kind of a cool and interesting pose at the same time. But at the same time, I think I'd rather have a squad of 3 guys all shooting their guns and using, for example, he does have the skull on the helmet. That is what is there to denote him as a sergeant. I don't feel like they constantly need to show him using his alternate weapons to make it very obvious that he's a sergeant. But maybe from a gaming point of view, it does make it a bit more obvious.
If they just literally just took the designs for Space Marine 2, they could have put you'd have a carry handle on top of the heavy bolters. You'd be holding it like a briefcase.
Oh yeah, because there is like a little handle up here, I assume, which is, well, maybe that's not a carry handle, that's firing handle.
It's more for steadying it in the other.
Yeah,
maybe it was like holding it from on top of it, like it's like a briefcase or something, with the shell on the floor. And he's got his pistol out, so it's clear. It's like he can't use his main gun because the clip's empty. Or he's halfway through reloading, so he's got the pistol out. This one just feels a little. It's weird to me that it just looks a bit weird to me, and that's my big bugbear of it. I will, before I hand over to Tim, two things I want to say is because you're talking about the different data sheets idea, Phil. I suspect it will be because these guys have got the little targeting thing. Or there is a word for that, like Auspex array or something. Because I know that some of the not the intercessors, the Phobos Marines would have that, as does Tor Garadon.
Some of the Death Watch have it as well. Yeah.
Maybe some kind of like ignores cover, or it will denote some kind of rule, as well as having the shield, the blast shield on the heavy bolter. I think which I think is important to differentiate this from the heavy intercessors and the other eradicators.
I think they will, and the fact that they've called, I mean, obviously, I think it could be either way. They've called it they've called it Eradicator Squad with heavy bolters, rather than just Eradicator Squad and then mention that they come with heavy bolters. So yeah, it makes me think it will be a separate data sheet, and it will have its own special rules. Because they did mention that these heavy bolters get blast when shooting. And I don't know if that's an ability or if it's just a weapon profile, like baked in rule. So we'd have to see. It'd be quite interesting. I do, on this Sergeant, I really like the sort of extra armored, sadly for you, Tim, knee padless leg greaves. I think that is quite cool, which I haven't done on the others. That one's got the painted in detail. But I do like it. Yeah, Tim, give us your thoughts on the heavy bolter guys.
I'm not keen on the blast shield. I just like having a heavy bolter as a heavy bolter, because I kind of think of it as like an M249. You're running around with your big old Rambo gun, just letting loose. I don't actually have a problem with the pose, because to me it looks like it's resting on his leg during kind of like an intermittent period of just firing off some shots with the pistol. But yeah, it's just the blast shields that irk me a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it'll be slightly annoying that if you were to cut it off, it would look odd because it's interfering with the detail that should be there, for example. So I don't think it would look quite right just removing them either. Yeah, I think I will just keep them on, but paint them in like a plain metal color, which is what I think I've done with my Inceptors. So at least it would tie in visually with them. I think as a squad, like conceptually wise, a unit of effectively like it's a Gravis Devastator squad, I think is really cool. I think personally I'd rather have seen that than a heavy intercessor like tactical squad. I think that squad sort of feels really redundant, and actually making the Gravis armor be the guys that specifically carry heavy weapons, and not have in the company command squad you've got a regular guy with a heavy bolter. I'm a bit like, don't do that. Just have Gravis guys now with heavy weapons, and they can sort of carry them around on foot, and having a squad of 3 of them I think would be really cool. It would be really interesting if they give us a multi-part kit, so they get rid of maybe they get rid of the existing Eradicator kit, give us a multi-part kit which has heavy bolters and multi-melters in, but also maybe potentially las cannons and plasma. That would be quite interesting, especially if it was all just one data sheet with different weapon options. That would be an interesting way to go down, and this was effectively the new Devastator squad. I think that would be quite cool conceptually wise for how they handle things. But who knows what they'll do with them in the future. But I definitely would like to. I'd be out of most of the units, this is the one I'd be probably most keen to like build and add to my force first of all, because I think it would just be good utility as well. Okay, is there anything else to say?
Just 2 other quick things. I think I actually no fix. I don't mind the blast shield. I think it's cool. I think they have missed a trick by not having it be belt fed into like some kind of ammo on the backpack ammo.
That would be cool. Yeah,
I think
because that's like older Marines.
I think it was like aggressors do that. I think they do. I think they've missed a trick doing that, because then they wouldn't need to put the blast shield on to differentiate them from heavy intercessors, for example.
True.
So I think they missed a trick there. I also think it's daylight robbery that Blood Angels got to have a squad of nothing but heavy bolters and not Imperial Fist. It's disgraceful, and
should have got your boys over to Armageddon.
As a long-term Fist player, I'm very disappointed that the Blood Angels got to show off the heavy bolter squad. Before my boys did.
That's understandable. Here's the thing. I think with the ammo feed, it will be quite simple. It's simple for me because I have resin belt feeds that I make on my shop, beyondthetabletop.com. And I ages ago toyed around with a belt fed bolter for one of my veteran guys, and it would work really well for this. So potentially, if you could remove that heavy bolter clip and attach that to his backpack somewhere, and then have a feed going round and in, I think that would actually look really good. I might steal that idea, Richie. I think that's pretty cool.
Because you could even, I mean, I don't know if people have if you had spare aggressor kits lying around, which you may do, because I don't know if anyone runs aggressors these days, but they literally have a bolt gun. It's a bolt.
Yeah, like a bolt drum that comes out the back.
Yeah, and it's literally got the drum on the back of the on the backpack, which goes to the which goes to the gun by the arm. Yeah, I think that's a missed opportunity. They haven't done something like that, and I look forward to seeing community and yourself provide alternative ways of actually showing that, because I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, I think it'd be good. I mean, to be fair, I think it still looks visually cool without it, because I do like that big giant drum that he's got. But I know what you mean. I think it would look pretty cool with potentially I was like a limitation of the number of sprues and the fact that it's all easy build, that having something go around to the back would have been too much of an extra.
I'm all here for there being a belt backpack fed version in the full kit. G-dubs. Make it happen. I know you'd need to decided that 2 years ago, but I hope you did. But my favorite one of the minis, as much as I have very strong opinions about the Sergeant, I do really like that they've got at least. This is the first time I've seen them on a heavy bolter, like the shells coming out of the shells coming out.
Yeah,
normally only Orks get that cool thing, so it's great that the Space Marines get that too.
Yeah, that's true. I was going to say, it reminds me of the in terms of the belt feed, one of the reasons why I like the Hellblaster full kit is because the heavy plasma rifle comes with like a bunch of cabling that goes to the backpack rather than the smaller ones which don't. And I think actually that looks much more interesting. So yeah, with that Gravis out of the way, we've got the first and only vehicle of the Space Marines. It's not a Dreadnought this time. It is the classic land speeder brought back to life, which is interesting because we've had, were they land speeder storms or storm speeders? I think land speeder storm was the Forge World variant, maybe, or a variant of a
It was just
land speeder.
like an enclosed attack version, if I remember.
Yeah. So this one's much more like the original. It's got that kind of much more slimline, much smaller, to be fair, than those land speeder storms, which is interesting. But it's got the kind of the multi-melters not really... It's sort of manually being targeted by the guy as the gunner rather than it being sort of built into a weapon system. You got the underslung Gatling cannon, which could also be a heavy flamer, I believe they've said. And then you've got the missiles. I never know what these little pointy, tiny las gun looking things are. I assume they're targeting sites. But they almost look like parking bumpers or something. They just look a bit odd. I assume they're targeted for like the missiles. But yeah, overall it looks pretty cool. I mean, I don't really have much to say about it. I think they also said, though, that there are 2 versions of this flight stand. So if you didn't want to mount it with the smoke, you don't have to, I think is something they said. So I don't know if there's another way of mounting it to the base. But I thought that was interesting as an update. And then, yeah, looks pretty cool. I think it's interesting that they've given us a smaller version of the land speeder. It's that classic thing Games Workshop do where they give us, rather than just redo this in the first place, they give us a slightly different variation of it that's then new for us to buy. And then once we all have that, they go, oh, you can have this old thing again. And now they're finally giving us this one. And it feels like my worry would be that this is a replacement for those, but I don't think that's the case. And it's instead, that's like a heavy version of this. And I think that's the way you've got to look at it. This is much more, this is like the general, the bikers to the ATV, for example, and with the ATV being a land speeder storm. So much more mobile and lightweight, and probably more game friendly in terms of, the amount of terrain and stuff like that on the board. Having smaller vehicles is probably a preference or general direction maybe that Games Workshop is moving in. But yeah, it does look pretty cool. Yeah, they say down here, Richie, all the models are push fits. Yeah, what are your guys' take on the land speeder?
Do you want to go, Richie, or?
I yak so much about the other ones. You go ahead now, Tim.
Okay, I really like it. I think it's great to see kind of like an iconic model come back to life and be reimagined. There is a part of me that wished that it was the new Outrider kit that was supposed to be rumored, because the latest White Scar character that got released on like his hover bike.
Yeah, that was very cool.
It was rumored that this edition was going to be the edition of fast attack, I think was the phrase used. But saying that, I've always loved a land speeder. I just think they're super cool. I don't know why, I just love them. And when the storm speeders came out, I was like, it's not quite a land raider. I see what you're trying to do, but yeah. Yeah, I think they've done a good job with
this still falls under fast attack, and obviously this is just the launch box, so there might be more Space Marine releases to come out when the Space Marine Codex comes out. So you might see something like new Outriders or new Grav Outriders or something. That would be quite interesting. Yeah.
I hope so, because that new White Scar character's bike is just gorgeous.
Very cool.
It is super cool.
Richie, what's your take on it?
I think it's awesome. I think it's really cool. At this point, I struggle to see the point of the storm speeders with this in play, because this has got a multi-melter, an onslaught Gatling gun, or what they call a heavy flamer. That's the biggest heavy flamer I've ever seen. That's like a double-barreled heavy flamer. So I don't know how that's gonna work, but it looks cool. The weird bumpery things you mentioned, Phil, they confuse me too, because they look like
guns.
My first las guns that have got like a safety cap on the top of them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of odd. So maybe there's some kind of like rule for something that they have.
Maybe I don't know if they were on the original. I sort of wouldn't be surprised if they're the targeting array for the missiles, because obviously you've got two of them. So it could be something like that.
That's a good point. I don't think the
Yeah.
OG, the really old ones had something like that, but I wonder. It's the kind of thing. If you have some kind of scanners on the front, maybe that's what that's intended to represent. I think
Yeah,
it's really
maybe
cool.
it's odd because you've obviously got the two different bits, which sort of looks very. It looks like an upside down lasgun, basically. But that sort of flat. I assume that's just a flat lens, basically. And then who knows what that extra bit is, but yeah, widgets and gubbins, basically. But it's a cool mini. Yeah. And that is it for the Space Marines. And I think they're just showing you some different, different colors in terms of the color schemes for how it could potentially look. What are people's thoughts overall of Space Marines?
If I take off my very specific narrow view to what meets my needs, I think it's a good way to get into Space Marines. Just in general, if anybody wanted to jump on like Warhammer 40k and start a Space Marine army, I think this would be a good start, because it's roughly probably around 700, 750 points worth of models there, give or take. And I think it's a lovely range that they've put together.
Yeah, that's fair. And Richie, what's your opinion?
I can't say anything more than what Tim said. I mean, it's a great starting point. The only thing that looks almost that feels slightly odd potentially is the land speeder, because it doesn't necessarily, in some ways, it doesn't fit. But I suppose it goes with this like the
jump packs,
speed and moving to the jump pack stuff. So it kind of works with them. So that's like a minor quibble there, but I think it's they're Space Marines. They are in some ways the least offensive or the least pushing the boundaries of it. Because I know like last edition, like they were like trying some more out there stuff with the minis, or like here's a squad entirely with flamers. Aren't you going to love that? And things like that. Whereas this time it's like very more back to basics.
It's playing it very safe, right? Because a bunch of these are just new sculpts of pre-existing models, like the chaplain on jump pack, the Vanguard veterans is all old kits being redone as Primaris. The land speeder is the same. The intercessors is a redo of an existing Primaris kit. So in terms of like new models, like even the captain in Relic Shield is a redo effectively of an existing model. So I could see why for a lot of people it's a bit lackluster, or it's not very exciting, because it's basically the Eradicators with heavy bolters is like the new unit out of this kit, right? If we just quickly scroll back, let's just remind ourselves. Obviously we've had an ancient before.
Yeah. But I think when you take into account who the opponent is in this block.
Yes, I think these are all really strong models, but I can understand why some Space Marine players is like, oh, where's my cool stuff? Because the only really exciting thing I think is, potentially the captain, but it's mostly, for me at least, it's the Eradicators with heavy bolters, because that is a brand new unit. But they're all strong, they're all really good. It's all a bit meat and potatoes. Like this is, as you said, Tim, is a great starter army for Space Marines. But I just don't think it's necessarily it's not like an auto buy for an existing Space Marine player, potentially, because a lot of them might have some of these things already. I mean, in theory, if you're a long-time Space Marine player, you've already probably converted up a unit of Vanguard Marines already, for example. But I think these are still worthwhile models to have in your collection. I think it would still be worth getting, and you will get use out of them. So yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with them. But yeah, probably you already own a previous librarian, for example, and you probably won't own a chaplain with jump pack, for example, but you probably have a few of the others. You'll have the ancient, you'll have the intercessors. But you probably won't have got a land speeder unless you were Was it Richie? Correct me if I'm wrong. Was it you or Dan that was going to do the land speeder army when they were dirt cheap in combat patrol?
Mhm.
Who do you think it was?
Dan.
It wasn't me. It definitely
Okay,
wasn't.
fair.
I
thought it was.
I was planning to do an Imperial Fist, like half my army be Imperial Fist scouts in the land speeder.
The scout version.
The scout version, because I bought 2 of those, and then like a month later they legends them.
Right.
So I'm
okay.
gutted about that. But they were cool. No,
They were cool models. I liked it with the scouts hanging off the side. I thought that was very cool. If they did I mean, maybe at some point they'd do a version of that again, which would be quite interesting to see. But personally, I like this more classic style land speeder, I think, overall. But yeah, it is a good set of minis, but I can understand why people are a bit like, it's just not super exciting. Especially, and we get onto it next, is in comparison to the Orks, they're not quite as exciting.
For the reasons you think it's not exciting, I think it is. I think it's really cool, because I think that if you with like, this is like a new edition, this is a new box to get to be a big exciting moment for the game. If it was if the hardest of hardcore players who were buying everything already are saying if it's for them primarily, I don't think that's a good like starter box. I don't think that's necessarily a good starter box. It's obviously you want to be appeasing both audiences, but to have something, if you're an existing Space Marine player and you're like, oh, I'm not going to buy that box because it's not got enough new stuff for me. It's not necessarily for you primarily. You're one of the audiences for this new edition. Is to get newer players in general into the game, as well as having a system of miniatures for existing players. Say, oh, here's a reason for me to get into this too. So I think because that's because it's got like models you may already have, or to put it in this perspective of, it's another squad of intercessors. I've got loads of intercessors. If you haven't played before or you're new, you need intercessors. You need a captain. There's a lot of miniatures in there which, as a Space Marine player, you'll already have. But if you're wanting to play if you're saying, I'm going to start doing Space Marines again now, or I haven't done Space Marines before, I want to get into Space Marines, this is a really, really good set.
Oh yeah, it's a great sort of starter set for Space Marines. I can see. What I suspect is maybe what's going to happen is it's tricking a bunch of Space Marine players into buying the box to then convert them into being Ork players. Because that's where I feel I am at the moment with this, where I'm like, oh, the Orks, they look really good. Is there anything else you guys want to say, Tim or Richie?
I actually have one more thing to say.
Oh, sure.
Maybe 2. The first thing is, like, there's no mention of Primaris anywhere in the article, right? Or is that just my imagination?
I think you could be right, but I sort of feel like with the onset of Leviathan, they kind of stopped using Primaris as a differential.
Okay.
So I think that's been slowly phased out for a while now, and they're just Space Marines.
Okay.
Yeah. And then was there a second thing?
Yeah, the only reason I bring that up is like I guess keep your eyes peeled for more phasing out of like pre-existing models. For example, we touched on the Storm Speeder recently. Like, what is the purpose of that going to be? And GW have no qualms in axing recent kits. So
yeah, I mean, I sort of hope that they will keep both in. And in this photo, you can see one of those land speeder storms in the background. So potentially they are going to be 2 different sort of size variants. So you could do if you're a White Scars player, you may want to have both types of land speeders for variety. But as Richie pointed out, the new land speeder is still quite heavily armored. It feels like it's got a lot of punch, so it'd be interesting to see the rules difference between the 2. So hopefully those older, larger kits are still viable. And you're right, there will be probably lots of stuff going to Legends. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the existing Firstborn stuff goes over to Legends, which has been speculated about loads, both on this podcast and online and stuff. It feels like it'd be a no-brainer for like the tactical Marines to now go. And the Devastator squad to go and things like that. Obviously, things like the Rhino and Land Raider, because they're so iconic, might stick around, but some of the older vehicles might go. And I think that would potentially happen to other factions as well with older kits. So yeah, it will be, if they get rid of any of the sort of Primaris era units, that will be a bit shocking because they're quite recent. But there's a handful that I could mention that I would happily see in the bin, like the ATV, like the Desolation Marines, being the two most notable ones. I think the suppressors we haven't seen for ages because they're in like they suffered from being in like a bundle sprue with other stuff. And similarly, I think like the Judicia and the Blade Guard style chaplain are all on like one big like command sprue, I think is how they call it now. And they're sort of stuck in this weird limbo world where they are still selling them, but they're so overpriced, like the access to get hold of them is quite difficult. So those might disappear at some point. And likewise, I think the librarian, when they showed off the librarian helmet options, he's included on a sprue with a bunch of other stuff. So if they did sell this parts of this kit at a later date, some of it is probably going to be all bundled together, which is interesting because when they showed off the Orks, I think it was either the Pain Boy or the Weird Boy, but one of them's on a standalone sprue. And I do find it odd that with these characters like the Librarian, why they just didn't put it on its own sprue so they could sell it separately at a later date. But I guess sometimes they're like, well, yes, it's fine to just be this launch-only item, and that's the only time you'll get that exclusive sculpt. And then maybe later on it'll be a different version that's coming out instead. Maybe that's why.
And
who knows?
I think the reason they'll keep it all on, they'll put one of the things that's always great about these new editions, and the reason that a lot of people say, "Oh, I didn't like it," will probably buy it anyway, is because they're incredibly good value for money.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it'd be interesting to see what the price of this box will be, but normally they're great value for money because you get so much stuff in them.
Yeah, and they keep the cost down by combining sprues.
True.
That's one, but that's why they'll do that. And just to clarify what I said, that I don't know how the Storm Speeder fits in. I mean, from a gameplay perspective, like it's got the like weapons wise, it doesn't seem weapons wise. This new Land Speeder seems comparable. So I'm curious as to where the Storm Speeder fits in to the overall army. I don't think they're going to necessarily Legends it because they're still actively selling it. The Suppressor Squad, which you mentioned, and doesn't exist. You can't buy it in any form now. There's no. I was just checking. It's not sold in any that squad. Which is the lighter, like the intercessors in jump packs with the big auto
cannons. Yeah.
There's nothing. There's no way to buy that from Games Workshop, and that's like that I could, at least on the website.
Yeah.
Right? So if that, because I don't know if that was ever. I think it was only ever sold in a.
It was a specific Space Marine box. I think that they launched just before they did the second Space Marine Codex in, I think, 8th edition. Just because that was when you got, it was a combo box of Space Marines and Chaos, and it was where you got the Chaos Venom Crawler in. I can't remember what the name of the box is. I want to say it was like Vanguard or something, but it probably wasn't.
Yeah.
There's Shadow Spear, I think it was. Shadow Spear, yeah, I think it was that. And that was the only time you could buy it. And then they did a subsequent separate release of that sprue with, I can't remember what other units it came with. But that was the only way to get it. And yeah, I'm not surprised it's not on being sold now. I suspect it's that might disappear basically. But I guess we'll find out in a few weeks' time or a few months, whenever the Spaceman Codex comes out, I guess.
We've not got long now.
Yeah. It'd be exciting to see. Okay, well, with that out of the way, we'll move on to the Orks. Transitional noise. All right, everyone, it's time for the Orks. So probably for me, the more exciting half of the box set. Let's start off with the War Boss, who isn't the previously revealed multi-pose version. He's just a standalone version, but phenomenal mini. I think I'll be saying this about all the Ork models. pretty much. I do like the sort of what feels like, and Richie, you're the orc aficionado, so you can correct me if I'm wrong.
I'll take that. Yeah,
it feels like there's a slight design change to the orcs. It feels like they're much more hunched over, and they've got sort of bigger torsos and smaller arms. Which I actually really like the look of. Like the proportions of the orcs that like they've sort of been tweaked and finessed slightly. They're different from the older orcs, and they feel a bit different from the beast snaggers. Like I feel like there's been a bit of design evolution to these guys. I mean, I could be wrong, but for some reason, all of these orcs I think look phenomenal in terms of how they look, and I never really felt like that with the previous orcs, basically. But yeah, back banners, that's great to see. Hazard stripes on cables, that's great to see. He's got like a sort of rotary power axe, or chain axe maybe.
Checker patterns everywhere.
Yeah, checker patterns, which is quintessential orcs. Yeah, and you've got your kind of your orc icons as well, which is a very classic piece. It does feel like in both portions of the box set they have done more retro nods and winks here and there with some of the design elements, especially with the orc. So he comes with a custom shooter and a custom chopper, which sounds really good. And I think they said with his chopper he gets effectively a blast style attack in combat as well. So the more people he's fighting with, the more attacks he gets, which I think is cool to see.
That is cool. I'm curious as to was it in '94 like the Orks Codex? I forgot what edition that was, second or third.
Possibly second still.
They used to have sort of all the symbols like laid out in the book and what they meant.
Yes, yeah, they did. Yeah.
So it's nice to see those little patches back. They've probably been on other artwork or on other models, but it's just nice that they're still there.
Well, they've sort of gone back to definitely a much more sort of square aesthetic, especially like the sort of the three patches on the banner, but also the rune on top of the banner is much more squarer, which is very reminiscent of that second ed stuff. I think they sort of lost that sort of form in later editions, and now they've gone back to being much more square. Clearly a human space marine, well, not human, transhuman space marine skull because of the service studs on the banner as well. That's very cool. Yeah, Richie, have you got any, well, firstly your thoughts, but also do you think the Orcs design has changed, or am I just making that up?
I think they definitely go. There's a lot to unpack there, and my webcam is still messing up.
You're just shrinking. You're shrinking every time.
I don't know why it just keeps.
Wait, you can just talk in the corner.
I'm just gonna wait. Let me just turn that off. There you go. I'll just be small instead of flying around.
I might be able to crop in on you in the edit.
So where we're at. So in terms of like the poses, I've been playing Orcs for maybe 5+ years now. A bit longer. So I'm not being I'm not massively long-term aficionado, but I've definitely playing more than anybody else in our group. And I think they've definitely really leaned into the big, they've got like bigger shoulders in general. I think it's like the visual style of it. They've always been kind of hunched over, but they've gone. I don't say like roided up. I mean, this guy definitely is because he's the war boss, but they're definitely like more muscular in the shoulders, so it makes it more pronounced. The visual, I don't think they use the word goth anywhere in here. They don't, which is interesting because visually this is like the goth, the goths, which like the black and white squares is most normally associated with the goths.
Well, the fact that they
cool, which is the iconic ones.
Yeah, I think because they painted up the Marines as Blood Angels, and they specifically said because the Blood Angels are taking part in the Armageddon campaign, it is a chicken and egg in terms of which came first, in terms of the narrative versus they wanted Red Space Marines and not Ultramarines, and therefore Ultramarines weren't in the campaign. So likewise, I presume the Goth Orcs are the ones actually taking part in the campaign, because it was a bit we were going to skip over, but in the box is the transfer sheet, And the transfer sheet does have a breakdown of some of the different orc factions. So Goths are in there as one of the transfer options. So it might be they've selected the Goth Orcs to be the sub-faction that they've painted up the models in, but they've just not kind of obviously called it out because it's not as obvious as Space Marine chapters.
I mean, in terms of visuals, that's what they've gone for, which is honestly, I don't want to say everything, but so much of this edition is like trying to be revamping and nostalgic for second edition.
Yeah,
in terms of visuals, and at least in terms of visuals and the kind of the minis involved. So they've really gone for that. I feel that there's the orcs. From when I've been collecting, since I started collecting orcs, I've really seen like a renaissance to use an overly pretentious word for the orcs in their visual stylings, which started with the not even the beast snag. It's a beast, although the beast snag is a really cool visual route they went down. That's not what that's not really what we're seeing in this set. But it's like a companion to this. What we're seeing, what I feel we're seeing here, is the evolution of the the new Gazgul Fracker mini, of the Speed Freaks minis, and of the what I thought was like the best set of minis they've had, and which I feel so much connected to. This one is the what are they called, the Blood Axes ones.
the kill team.
Yeah, the Blood Axe kill team, which the Commandos.
Yeah.
Everyone listening is being like, you don't know Orcs, you can't remember the Commandos. Those Commando minis were awesome, and there's the personality of just like a bunch of British squaddies or a bunch of British lads down the pub, or rugby players out on the Friday night. I was like, talk. That visual intensity was so great in the Orc Commandos, and we see that here to the extent that in like this War Boss mini. I mean, the horns coming back, like orcs with like big horns on their helmets. I thought that's a throwback. The big metal jaw again. I feel that's a throwback. I think this mini is so cool. As we were looking at it, I always find it. I was saying, it's hilarious that this orcs have hazard stripes. Like the orcs know what hazard stripes are, or do they? Do they know what hazard stripes are? Because they definitely put hazard stripes on the cable.
Here's the thing: they might think hazard stripes makes it more dangerous.
Exactly,
because that's what they think. Well, this chainsaw coming towards me has got a hazard stripe on, so we're going to put a hazard stripe on ours to also make it killy. That, I imagine, is their logic.
Yeah, which could be a bit, but I also like that the hazard stripe, the cable itself, if you look on the mini, is frayed. You can see the cable below it. There's so much.
Oh yeah, you can see the cable.
One thing that's really great about
yeah,
like, when you look at the back of Space Marines, you sometimes see some like, oh, they've got some. And I've been playing Orcs for a while now, so I love seeing all this stuff. You guys are probably looking at it much more closely for the first time. Or the first time in a long while with this edition and with these being revealed, but the detail on the back of this War Boss is insane. Like you got this bullet belt, you got this jerry can of who knows it was like a jerry can of like petrol or something, which is then going through that cable into.
Yeah, well, it's sort of it's what the banner's like strapped to as well, and they've sort of made like the back banner isn't just mysteriously as if by magic stuck to the inside of his back. It's like actually strapped to this harness. Like you can literally see the stitches on his pants. You can see like the double belt buckle strap on his boots. It's like an incredibly detailed model. And obviously, the Space Marine captain was cool, but it isn't quite as brimming with detail. It has got detail in, but nowhere near as much as this guy's got. And obviously, it's a much bigger model. It's just, phenomenal in terms of what it's got. And I think I'll put my pitch out. I'll pitch my tent up here and basically say, I really want to paint these orc models. Well, I really want the orc models, and it makes me want to do an orc army. But then I look at the sheer amount of detail on these models, and I dread having to actually paint them. But I would love, in theory, to just own them and maybe one day paint them. So yeah, they're beautiful enough that I want to own them and have an orc army and be an orc convert, because I think all of these models are cool. But painting them just fills me with dread in terms of how much stuff there is on all of them, even the basic, like the orc mob guys. When we get down to them, there's just so much stuff on them. But they are phenomenally cool models. I would say, in a way, the downside of these models is they're so good. The older sculpts, even though the relatively newer sculpts, don't feel like they stand up to the quality of these ones, because the Space Marines, they fit alongside the Space Marines. The Primaris is all Primaris, right? Whereas these, to me, look visually a bit more distinct than the older, new Orks. But maybe I need to go back through that Ork range and actually see how different they are, because they might not be that much different, but there's something about these which is very cool.
Something else that is kind of visually, I'm getting the vibe from these, because it's hard to until you see them all like lined up together. And there's a handful of like group shots at the end of the community article, so you can try and get in a sense of how big these are. But it feels like they've really gone for the idea that as orcs get bigger and stronger, they get bigger. Because
that was historically always the case.
Oh yeah. Well, obviously, we know that's how that works in the law. But then it's miniatures wise, that wasn't necessarily the case, because when it comes to the miniatures, often the bigger orcs were wearing mega armor.
Yes,
and they're actually just the same size. It's actually more like just a regular orc in a big suit.
Yeah, because Gaz is big, but he's kind of big because he's in a suit as well, rather than because he's just a really big orc.
Well, I think Gaz is still really big, but like the current like big orc is the war boss in mega armor, because everybody had like a war boss model for a little while now, like a new sculpt for him. The war boss in mega armor is huge, but he's also huge because he's wearing mega armor. This guy looks huge, and he's just, and this is why it's great that they show you the whole mini you can see behind. He's just a guy in a vest. This is just a big muscular guy in some trousers and a beige vest that he's gonna go have a fight over for some stuff, and he's huge, and I think that's brilliant. That's what I get out there.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Because they did show off some of the models, like the size comparison between them, because you see the Orc boys and you go, oh, that looks really big, but then they put it next to a Space Marine and it's smaller, and you're like, oh, okay, that isn't big, but then the War Boss is much bigger, for example. We realised we've left Tim out of the conversation, so Tim, please rejoin us and let us know your thoughts on this guy.
That's okay. Thank you for bringing me back. No, I think it's a really cool model, but I agree that there is like way too many details going on. I'll just say on an overall with the Orks, I actually kind of wish that they expanded on the Beast Snagger sort of range. Don't get me wrong, like these are all lovely and they are a nice little nod to second edition and hit that nostalgia button for us, which is probably the group that has all the money that's going to spend on this. Just from a marketing point of view, I guess. But yeah, either Beast, I would have liked to have seen more Beast Snaggers, but it is a cool model.
Yeah, I definitely think that's like a cool sub-faction that could be fleshed out a bit more.
It's only because, like you, I wanted to do an Orc force as well, but just the sheer amount of models you need. And now that all these models are just getting more and more details, like I painted some boys a while back just as like a little painting palette refresh, and I even felt like those had quite a bit of detail on them as well. And I was like, if you're going to do this as a Horde army and you want to do it to like a nice standard, it's going to take you ages.
Yeah, true.
I don't necessarily think that you do that. I think it'd be cool to see some more stuff in the Beast Snaggers range, but the Beast Snaggers range is the one that needs the least help in terms of mod minis.
Right.
I think Tim's right. There's a limited amount of minis in there, so it'd be cool to see some more, because they've got the Beast Snagger boys, they've got the Pain Boss, they've got the Beast Boss, they've got the Squig Riders, they've got the Beast Boss on Squigosaur, and then there's the Killwig. There's a good selection of units in there, but it's like AOS levels of a good amount of units, and it's like enough for it. There's not too many there. But then you got the Speed Freaks. There's loads of them now. I'm assuming there's new bikes coming to round out that set. But what hasn't really been updated is the core Orks,
right?
And like the core like standard, if you will, Orc stuff. I'm really excited
because I've had a
few.
Because I've had a few War Boss minis relatively recently, I feel like, or maybe it was a War Boss in Mega Armor. Then they had Pain Boy, I think, was maybe 10 years old now. So while it still sort of holds up, I don't think it's been particularly recent. So maybe it was a general Orc range refresh was needed. But yeah, let's move past the war boss and see what we've got next, which is the big boss. He looks very cool. So I'm guessing he's sort of lieutenant style character, I assume. Yeah, he's the second biggest, second strongest, toughest Orc. Comes with a two-handed big chopper. Yeah. So also looks cool. Slightly less impressive. Definitely a bit smaller. I don't feel like I've seen this one. Maybe I've skipped over this one somehow. But yeah, it looks all right. Definitely doesn't look as cool as the big guy. But still pretty interesting with the back banner, bionic eye, double-handed power axe, some kind of little squig critter on his base with a little whomping tail, and yeah, some interesting back details as well. I love the sort of battery style screws with the wires going directly into the axe. That's quite a fun little nod to some sort of ramshackle technology. That's good. Yeah, Tim, what do you think of this guy?
Yeah, super cool. I'm not a fan of like the big double cow horns at the top though. I don't know why. This is just a me preference. I do think they look cool if I was just going to put my designery hat on, but for me personally, I'm not a fan of it. I do like the exaggerated jawline as well. I feel like that's pretty cool.
He's got some very big teeth.
He has got some very big teeth. You know, that's how you know he's odd.
I sort of feel like he looks more like a classic Orc in my head in terms of the shape of his face and the size of his arms. And he's not, as Rich was saying, particularly like broad-shouldered. Whereas this war boss is like a big inverted triangle, like with jumbo shoulders and arms. Well, sort of small arms, but like sort of jumbo shoulders. I guess you can't really see his face, to be fair.
My question would be, though, would you feel weird if you painted him as a bad moon?
I don't know.
Does he suit the bad moon aesthetic? Because obviously bad moons are like flash gits, right? Their teeth fall out easily, and so they're the richest of all the Orc cultures.
Maybe paint him up as gold teeth. So that which is a bit piratical, but it basically implies that they have fallen out.
Could do. I think it's more the armor.
Teeth around on his necklace.
Yeah, but it's more the armor. I don't know why, but I feel like bad moons would have slightly different armor.
Maybe. What's your take, Richie?
I think this is one of the best minis in the whole the whole box. This is my favorite minis, and part of that is I'm assuming down to the incredible paint job of like the sparks and the electricity coming out of the axe, which looks really cool. It gives me 90s heavy metal album cover vibes, which I absolutely love. I love that he's got a Vanguard vet Beaky Boy helmet hanging from his belt as like in the idea that the Space Marine's like, we're coming back, and he's like, I remember you boys. But what I love about this particular mini is the contrast it does to the other war boss. Towards the actual war boss and not a lot of the other ones, because the war boss is just like screaming, he's loud, he's running, he's coming at you, whereas this guy is just standing there with a massive axe who's been like, come on in. He's got this which they haven't really had in they don't often have in the Orc minis, but in many minis, but the idea that he's just like, he just knows that he has got the biggest axe and he's going to mess with anybody who comes near him. I don't know if that'll be impacting connected to rules in any way for how he's going to be, how he works on the battlefield. But I think this is just such a really cool model. I like that it feels slightly more understated than the other stuff. And he's just like, I'm me. I've got this big axe. And I've got this giant cow horns on my back so that you can tell from a distance that I'm the boss. So I'm wondering how tall he is without them on. So if you didn't want to put them on him, Tim, from that perspective, but I think I really like the cold confidence of this, or kind of the way he's like how he's gripping that axe. I just think this is a really, really cool mini for the Orcs. It's nice to see a different kind of personality, like a different kind of brutal personality coming through there.
Yeah, and you've got like clearly some plain shoulder pads and sort of a belly plate torso piece to do some freehand or transfers and stuff, and they've done obviously for checks. And then on the back there's another symbol. So I think that's cool that they've kept some bit simple on this mini in terms of ease of painting up or an option to do some detail or transfers on them. And yeah, I sort of get what you mean, Tim, with the cow horns. It's like, where are these alien cows that we never see
Right.
that are adorning these things? But I appreciate that it's like a classic orc aesthetic in terms of back banners. So yeah, I like those nods to, one thing they haven't done with the Space Marine Rangers is given us more back banners. They should have been doing that in this edition as well.
That's a good point.
But it is cool. Is there anything else to add with to these guys before we move on?
No.
I'll tell you.
No,
Okay, cool. Next is banner knob. So going from back banners to standalone banners. This guy I think is really phenomenal. Again, interesting proportions, like the bandoliers, massive banner. I don't know if they currently have a banner knob guy. Is this like a new thing or an old thing? Obviously, Gretchen's carried banners before in terms of like Makari, is it? And
so knob with war banner was an old mini that was a Forge World thing, or there were rules for it in previous editions.
Okay.
But it's never been. There's not been like other than Makari. There hasn't been like a real.
I didn't
mini
think there was, but I think this is really cool. I like how they've also got the key power axes here with the sort of mad lightning effects on them. There's some minimal sculpted detail on the banner, so there's a lot of space for transfers and stuff. Interestingly, there's some orc skulls on the banner as well, which I don't know if that's in reverence to them or mocking them, maybe because they're rival orcs. But yeah, I love the amount of ammo that he's got on him. Just for general pose, is this banner, Richie, defying gravity, or do you approve of it?
This one I approve of. This one is clearly the wind is blowing. In this one fits. There's the visual lines of how this works make sense with this one.
Fair. Because
think this one looks
you've
phenomenal.
got the plume showing the direction of the wind, so it feels like it is just blowing. Blowing in the wind.
This guy feels like he's reached the top of the mountain and he's planting the flag for the boss.
Yeah,
and the wind's blowing in his squig hair. It's perfect.
You could almost line up the librarian to be blasting him, and he's like, "Whatever, it's not doing anything. I don't care." And that's cool in terms of like the stitching detail on the back of the banner. More stuff to paint up, I guess, but actually that's quite impressive that they've thought about how things are being attached to things. What's your take on it, Tim?
I really like it. I think it's a super awesome model to add to like the Orc collection, and it really stands out. It's a nice, strong, dynamic pose. You're still carrying on like the little lightning on the axe, as Richie pointed out earlier, which is super nice. Obviously painted, and to anyone that does that, I doff my hat to you, because that'll probably take you ages if you did it on all the axes. But yeah, it's a cool model. It really is. Probably one of my fave out of the Orc range.
Okay, cool. With that, we go on to the Pain Boy, which is also a phenomenal mini. Comes with a little Gretchen guy with a serrated saw.
Interesting. Orderly, to use the correct terminology.
Grots, yeah. Gretchen, I think, is an old second edition term.
No, it is a Gretchen, but it will be a Grot Orderly, and I didn't even look at the screen to know this, because I have a Grot Orderly already.
Fair, but yeah, this Pain Boy is really phenomenal. Has he got a peg leg? Yeah, he's got a peg leg, and he's got like some knife fingers as well. But whatever this weird weapon is that he's sort of looming over someone, I think it's very cool. He's sort of just a really interesting mini. I just love the detail, and love the sort of proportions of him as well. Yeah, it's a cool mini, and the Grot extras, very cool. What do you guys think about him?
I don't like him.
You don't?
No. I don't actually like him. It's just his pose that weirds me out a little bit. Like him coming over the top with his medical device. It just feels a bit weird.
He's a bit
to me.
ampersand in terms of the sort of the pose that it's creating and the direction of it with the cable going around him. So I get that. I mean, it'd be quite interesting to see this one in a 3D, I think.
Yeah. I think for me personally, I would have liked to have seen him maybe on a slightly bigger base and maybe dissecting either another orc or space marine, just to sort of add a little bit more to it, because they went all ham on the weird boy, which we'll get to later. So
true, yeah. And what do you think, Richie? Are you a fan?
I quite like it. It makes me think of. It reminds me of the guy from How to Train Your Dragon, the one who's got the peg leg in that. I think it's just a very mad mini. I don't dislike it as much as Tim does. I think it's a very odd pose, so I definitely want to see what it looks like in 3D. But I was like, he's like, come here, I got you. Like it's like medical implements. I think it's really cool. I like it. I don't know. I think the Pain Boss I liked a lot. I think I preferred the Pain Boss mini. To be honest, I thought that was a cool mini, but I like this as a different one, as an alternative. It's a nice cool one. It's a different take on the Pain Boy, because previously the Pain Boys has always been like characterized like got grots. They've got something like some big with like some big scissors or scalpel or something. So I like the idea he's got whatever this injection gun thing is going on there, while also he's clearly been having to fix himself up.
Yeah, he's got loads of he's a bit of a Frankenstein with the amount of stitches on him and stuff like that.
Yeah, because what's interesting is whatever this weapon is that he's got like a syringe on the end of it, is connected to this big pack.
Yeah,
it's like a pack on his back, which in turn is connected to his spine.
Yeah, I don't quite get what's going on in there. I presume maybe he's feeding himself some fluids maybe with it from people.
But it's a good thing he's got his apron and his kind of COVID
mask. Yeah, it is a bit of an odd touch, but it's
he wouldn't want to catch anything.
He's an odd, creepy model. That's for sure. Next up is one, Timmy. You mentioned the Weird Boy. So why don't you start with telling us what you think about the Weird Boy?
Okay, from a design perspective, I think it's mad. It is insanely crazy. It's great in that regard. It's completely different from anything else in the Orc range. Similarly, it's like the one I feel like that they've put the most effort into.
Yeah, it's got like quite a cool dynamic base.
And I feel because of that, the others are kind of missing out a bit.
Yeah, I feel like that's fair. I feel like this has got a lot more work put into it, and as you say, it's a bit mad with all the sort of Medusa hair of the cables, but it makes the others, especially like the Pain Boy, maybe look a little bit lackluster in comparison.
And that's the reason why it kind of irks me a little bit. It's I think it's going to be one of those models that are quite marmitey. Some people are going to like it. Some people will probably hate it, as most cases with GW models. But for me, it's also just like the cables flying everywhere. I'm not a big fan of that, personally. I know it breaks up the silhouette, and you can easily identify it on the table, and the reason design choice behind it might be because of that. But for me, I guess I would have liked to have seen more mad lightning going on around, kind of thing, or throwing out a big foot.
Yeah, because it sort of makes you go, well, what are these cables actually doing? Are they a conduit for his psychic powers? Is it like a psychic hood? Is it like Doc Ock tentacles that he's controlling? It feels very technological, whereas a Weird Boy, it feels like it should be more, because it's psychic, it doesn't feel like it necessarily needs technology to feed into it, but I guess that's the direction they've gone into it, right?
I guess it's like the modern age of their modern version of a shaman right? Like where a shaman would have lots of little trinkets flying around their staff and maybe a weird headdress. I'm kind of bringing Vikings back to my head where they had that weird crow man who was
Right.
like blind and had a lot of things. And in terms of lore, as far as I remember, like Weird Boys used to work a lot better in a big group of Ors because they would just channel all the War energy and then just unleash it. So it does get me wondering, like, why this guy has a specific kind of crown/hood, as the word you use, like similar to Space Marines. It feels more to be like a very specific character than it does to be just a generic Weird Boy, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. No, I can sort of see that. Yeah. Richie, what's your take on the model?
I'm torn on it and I think part of the reason I'm torn on it because of the paint job. Because the War energy, the War paint job, the War energy, they visualize here as being basically pink.
Yeah,
and I think that's what jars me a little bit, especially when you look at the back of the mini where there's like nothing. There's like at least on the paint job, there's like it's a bit bland at the back, and there's not much like real paint job of what's going on. Whereas in the trailer, I thought I was expecting a lot more of them. I was expecting lots more green energy and lightning going on. So I agree with Tim. It would be I feel there should be more lightning. Again, this might be like when you see it in person, it could be a bit better. But I feel the visual attempt, the thing they want to go for is that there's energy rising up around him. That's why all the wires and cables are going upwards. Is because of this. He's like at this point he's like a conduit for war energy, and he's doing that big blast from the trailer, which was epic. And it's like killing loads of people. So it feels like it's in process of some kind of big psychic attack, but it just feels a little bit. There's a lot going on with it that I'm torn on, because I do like something. I like the idea that they just strap loads of cables to him, because you probably should do that, because that's what the librarians do. We should probably do something like that.
Yeah, it could be.
So what do these cables do? Where do they normally go?
That's a bit sort of ambiguous, right? Because would they just be hanging down? Is it meant to be like hair? Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I'm sort of a bit on the fence with this one, I have to say. It's kind of cool in concept, but maybe it hasn't quite pulled it off.
Because I mean, one thing that I have noticed sometimes when they do these but when they present the minis in these fashions, it's not always clear how large each mini is.
Yes, true.
Because my feeling here is that he's actually potentially scrawnier than say the models we've looked at previously, like the knobs and the bosses, because he shouldn't be this big hulking miniature who's going to have best you in a fight. He's like the weedy shaman of the team, of the group. So I think it could look cool, but what I feel is slightly let down by the back of the miniature. It doesn't have much going on with it.
Right.
When on so many of the others, there's like stuff. What's so cool about other orc minis? There's always something in like the back, which as an orc player is awesome, because half the time when you're playing on the tabletop, you're seeing the back of your models half the time, which is why Space Marines is really boring. It's like, oh look, it's another backpack. Whereas for orcs, it's like there's always something interesting to look at the back of your minis. Whereas with this guy, it's a little bit, compared to the others, there's not quite as much going on behind him. At least it also appears like. So I'll wait to see more of it. I'll wait to see how the community paint him up, because he could look a lot better.
Yeah, that's true. And I think, as you're saying, he's probably quite small, but I think the cables are there to give him a bit of bulk and height, basically, to make him look, be a bit more imposing on the tabletop. Okay, cool. Let's go on to the boys, which are the standard lot of your orcs. You've got your sort of leader sergeant type model with the. Is it basically was it shooters and choppers? I don't know, shooter and a slugger. Boss Knob has combi rocket or combi shooter, and all the regular guys have choppers as well, I think is what they said. Although I can't see it mentioned there, but yeah. You've got.
I think they said that similar to how Space Marines, like orcs, is kind of standardized that they have a shooter and a slugger and a chopper.
Yeah.
regardless of their loadout.
Yeah, because it used to be you had either the shooter or the pistols and the choppers, basically. And now you can see when we get to images of the back, they're either carrying one of those options, but then the other weapon options like holstered on their back, which I think is really cool. But yeah, to me, some of these models look better than some of the character models, like just in terms of the proportions of these. What I'm calling inverted triangles. I think they do have that sort of silhouette with the big shoulders, small arms, sort of little legs. But the weapons are very cool. Like almost like a Space Marine style chain sword here. I love the brimming of the ammo coming out and the sort of very sort of second ed style, like little helmets, very reminiscent of like 80s motorcycle gangs in movies and stuff like that. They're all very cool. What are your guys' takes on these guys? Have you got any particular favorites, for example?
I really love the revolver on like the first image that you had. I don't know why.
The very first one.
Yeah, like that little revolver just right at the front there.
Oh, the bottom.
Little slug revolver. It just reminds me of Gorka Walker in a way. In fact, this range does remind me of Gorka Walker for some reason.
I wouldn't be surprised if they'd been inspired by a lot of those older editions of Orks. But again, like I said, there's just so much detail on these guys, even though they're like the most basic of Orks. It just feels like it would take a phenomenally long time to paint all of these up, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm not sure. How many points is like a squad of 10 these days?
Well, do you know what I can say?
I'm trying not to think too much about that stuff, like assuming they may or may not be rebalancing some of that when this edition drops.
True.
But
it's cheaper. Sorry.
Look,
no,
as in make them more expensive.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Ignore what Tim said there. That's not. No, these look really cool. I mean, one thing I will say, if you guys haven't looked in depth at the Commandos range after this call, look at them, because they are so cool in terms of the details that they add and the personality. These look great, because I like the new Space Marine intercessors because they each felt they had personality. But when you compare that to these, the Space Marine intercessors look boring.
Yeah, that's fair.
Which isn't to criticize the Space Marines, but there is just so much personality brimming on these minis, because these are just like a bunch of football hooligans who've got into a fight. My favorite thing of these is the one is the orc who's pulled the pin out the frag grenade with his teeth.
Ooh, let's see if I can go back and find him.
There's a couple of them of examples, because I think there's two in here, I think, and the guy's got the Dr. Octopus style goggles as well. I think that's a really cool
I was thinking of the guy from is it Pitch Black? He's got similar sort of goggles on as well. Yeah, Riddick. Yeah.
But also shout out to both of the boss knobs. Both of the boss knobs are.
Oh, they're gorgeous.
Oh, the Grenadier.
Yeah, there's like two versions. I think they've got. There's 10 like sculpts with some slight variations you can do in terms of poses, but because there's two that have the exact the exact setup of the grenade to the side and he's pulled the pin out.
Yeah,
if you scroll through, but both of the boss.
Yeah, because there's one there. He's got a grenade there, but he's not got the.
There's a grenade on page 2 as well, and then there's another one on.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, okay, yeah, different grenades. But similar sort of pose and setup, but I think different sculpts. Yeah,
I think it's the arms. So I'm suspecting that there's that the heads and arms all have the same sort of slotting into for a lot of them. The bare chested ones, I think, are going to have limited arm options in what alternative weapons and poses you can give them. But they all look great. I think they're gorgeous. I keep saying I want to focus more on AOS, but I'm going to have to get more into Orks with these.
Yeah, that is pretty understandable. Cool. With those out the way, then there's the Gretchen, which was 5 of which got previewed beforehand. Again, some of them a bit reminiscent of the second ed ones. I think it was that one with the little sort of spiked helmet and the gun. Yeah, I mean, they're all quite characterful. I've seen a few people point out that their ears aren't anywhere near as big as they used to be. They're like mini ears, but I think they're interesting. I think they're still quite characterful. Maybe not as humorous as they're normally depicted. These look quite evil, I would say, a bit nasty looking, but they're still pretty cool. Tim, what's your impression of these dudes?
They are pretty cool. I just don't like the long noses.
Yeah, that's the thing that makes them look evil.
Yeah, I don't know. It irks me. I like the original design more.
Fair. And then Richie, what do you think about them?
I think it works with them being more evil because that's what they really were. They weren't like they were.
They're called Gits for a reason, right?
Yeah, they're not. They're not really like the comic relief that say Nurglings are, or Snotlings. These are just like little. Sorry, waving my arm so you know to cut that. Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry. They are scumbags. Is what they are. They're not nice. They're nice. I think they look. They look okay, but they don't look. I don't think they look that kind of good either. I mean, I think they look fine. I'm just wondering because when I look at them, I'm thinking, are they push fit or something? Or there's all this. They look very flat.
Like yes, they do.
That you just pop them out and that's it. There's no other. They're just like it's just like they're just like one
maybe
piece.
That is what they are. Maybe they're all sort of single.
Because they're all
pieces.
They all seem very kind of.
But there is alternatives, so they've got to. But you're right; they do have a very flat pose to them. But it might be they're very one-dimensional. Put it that way. Yeah, I think that's fair. Cool. Any more to say on these guys? No. Okay. Brilliant. Then we've got some of the bigger things. So we've got the war track. They showed off what the GW team said was the oldest war track, but then they corrected themselves because it wasn't the second edition one, it was the Gorkamorka one. But they're both very similar in terms of a guy riding the back with some guns, very reminiscent of what you got to see with squats as well in that sort of second edition era. This, I think, is really phenomenal. It really harkens back to that old, slightly more manic style of Orks, where it's all a bit ramshackle. I prefer this, I think, in visually than the sort of more speed freak stuff that we've seen recently with like the cars and the buggies, because that looks a bit more wacky races, whereas this feels more Orks to me. But maybe that's just, the historic design silhouette of this thing rather than those newer ones. But yeah, I really like this. I think this is a very cool mini. Brimming with detail and a pain to paint probably, but cool nonetheless. And I hope we get more things in this sort of style for the Speedwire, basically.
Well, I think you're absolutely right though, Phil. I think this is not similar to the Speed Freaks at all. I think that the Speed Freaks, they are their own thing. That's why they've got that's the fast vehicles. Yeah, where you've got the buggies, you've got the bikes, there's the track, and as I said before, I think we're going to see some. I'd be very surprised if we don't see new bikes coming. This feels more like the rank and file Ork stuff.
Yeah,
I don't think this will be as
like
fast.
Generic Orks.
Yeah, which sounds awful to say like generic Orks, but like the core Orks will have this, which looks fantastic. I love again that the guy on the missiles has got he's got the what's definitely emblematic of this range of I've got an axe made of metal. Just strap a USB battery to it and connect it up. That'll be fine. Get some extra juice in it.
Yeah, they've all been doing it. Yeah,
they've all been doing that. I think it reminds me of the older stuff, the older minis. It's got just loads of missiles on it. I don't know if they say it can have different guns. I don't really get it. I think it looks really, really cool, and I think it's part of the. I
don't think they do.
I'm hoping that this is a sign there'll also be a new war truck or some kind of transport.
Yeah.
for Orks coming, because the Beast Snaggers have got the kill rig. Regular Orks they've got the war truck, which is it's fine, but it's a very old mini compared to this stuff. So I really hope there's a new transport for Orks coming.
Yeah, that would be good in terms of like a more general release kit for them to come. And you say the bikes as well, because we know we've got the bike war boss, haven't we? Yeah. Tim, what do you think?
Love it. I hope it comes with like a heavy stubber option. I'm not too much of a fan of the missiles, but I understand why they're there. But give me heavy stubbers and let's remake Gorka Morka.
Yeah, it might be there'd be a multi-part kit version down the line with some different weapon options. It seems like this one specifically just comes with rockets, so it's like a sort of mobile heavy weapons platform. I love the design of the way they've painted up all the different missiles so they all look individual. I think this is a phenomenally cool kit. It looks just more like orky and robust in comparison to the Speed Freaks, as you pointed out, Richie. And then we got I think the last thing.
I was going to say a couple. I was going to briefly go a couple other things. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm hopeful. If you look there, so if you stop the screen there for those who are watching the video, and Phil edits this in at this point.
I would do.
What you can see at the side is what I think you might see of the actual bike when it comes out, when they have the bike kit, because it looks like a motorbike. You can that looks like a.
You got the fuel canister.
You got the fuel canister and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping that's like the
design,
that form, like a core part of it. It's just like the back that would be different. I'm really looking forward to seeing that there.
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And another dead beaky boy.
So they seem to like their beaky boys, but maybe that's tying it in with sort of Second Ed, although weirdly Second Ed didn't have beaky boys in it at all. But I guess it's harking back to retro Space Marines, which is odd because actually there's not many beaky helmets that are Primaris.
That's because it's not.
Well, it's because all the Orks have them, right? Maybe.
One other last thing before we go on to one of the coolest minis that's ever been created. Well, in my opinion, Tim, my brother in the war. I'm loving that you're on board, but we don't call it a stubber, we call it a shooter.
Oh, sorry, mate. I did not realise.
You've got to get that lingo down if you're going to come with us on the war, mate. So you want the heavy shooters. That's it. That's
all I want to say is just slap more DACA on it, mate.
There you go. Sorted. That's what I'm talking about.
Nice. Right.
Speaking of DACA.
Yeah, exactly. We've got the Big Mech DACA rig, which literally has all the DACA on it. It's a guy riding a two-legged walker with the biggest gun possibly ever. It's quite impressive. I think my initial thoughts was I was disappointed it didn't have 4 legs and it's only got 2. And I think that was just my impression of how it looked on the animation when they first previewed it. I just assumed that's what it would have. So when I was like, oh, it doesn't. And then I think they pointed out in the live stream, it looks like a squig. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. Because I was like, oh, it's a weird chicken thing, but it's meant to be a giant squig. I sort of like the fact it's like they've been inspired by the Sentinel and they're like, oh, we can do that. Oh, yeah, 2 legs, lots of guns. And then this is what we've got. I think it's quite impressive. I think the clawed feet is the bit that I just don't like. But I like everything else. The gun itself, I think, is just beautiful. Like the weird jumbo cylinder, I think looks phenomenal. He's got his is it force field generator on his back? What's the actual technical term for that?
Oh yeah, that for a mech that will be. That looks like some kind of force field generator.
Yes, yeah, but the big mechs have a particular word for that force field, don't they?
Oh, custom force field.
Custom force field. Yeah, that's it. So yeah, he's got one of those on the back as well. It looks really interesting. It looks like it's like quite a decent size. I guess if you were to look at this and compare it to the Land Speeder, it's like, well, this is really cool and interesting. And the Land Speeder is a bit boring in comparison, right? And this is like a brand new thing. It's sort of interesting as a concept, sort of because they were making comparisons to say it was fitting with a dread mob, which is like your death dreads and your killer cans, because this is a similar big walker type thing. So yeah, it's interesting to see something sort of new and different, and it feels so much more orky than I'm trying to think of the name of it. It was like the mini gargants that they
Oh,
put
the
out. Gorkanauts, yeah, because those just never really seemed to. They were orky, but I don't know, they just look too neat. Whereas this feels much more ramshackly orky to me, in comparison to those kits. But I sort of understood what they were trying to do with it. But yeah, so Richie, you're saying it's the best mini out of the whole box.
I think it's definitely one of the best minis out of the whole box. It's one of the. It's a great mini for being able to connect the dots and the visual motifs they've gone for here with the Orks, because I think we might have talked about this the other day actually. But the people at home don't know that it was when I got to this mini, and specifically in the full breakdown where you see the other sides and the rear of it, it's like, oh, this entire Orks range has been taking the awesome Ghazghkull Fracka mini and applying that to an army of Orks. Because the way the armor looks and the legs and the motors and the pipes is very clearly connected to the Ghazghkull mini, and it feels like it feels like this is a connection, like the Ork technology being slightly ramshackle but very angular pieces. It's fantastic, and the thing that I really love about this mini that it's so not obvious, because I don't think there's a way they can show you, is that massive gun is being fed by bullets on both sides.
You can see on the left and the right. Yeah,
it's got like these giant barrels of bullets that are being fed in. From the left
it was
and
interesting because in the live stream they're like, oh, look, there's 2 fuel canisters right next to him, but you're right, they're actually ammo drums instead.
Oh yeah, they're not fuel canisters. They are 2 massive ammo drums that are feeding it from both sides, and the bullets. I mean, it's utterly ridiculous, but it's some parts of it make me feel like it's a bit sort of Skaven-y in a way, and that it's just like pushing crazy technology to an extreme, with some of the stuff in AOS they've had, in like a design philosophy approach, not like visual, not like actual aesthetics. But that's what this is. It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna I hadn't heard the reference to it being a giant squig. Giveaway, I didn't watch the live stream. I just looked at the
because you can see, so like you've got the feet, and then this bit here is like its jaw, and then the overall like squig body, I guess, and then they've sort of painted something on the shield basically.
It looks super cool. I can't wait to see this on the table, and your opponent being like, it's the kind of thing that you'll have, and then by the sound of it, what they've said, if it doesn't move, it's better at shooting. But for an Ork, that means you're hitting on a 4 usually, rather than a 5. Because like this thing and it got the rockets away. This thing could probably be devastating if it could hit something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming it's going to be like a bucket of dice that you got to throw when you're shooting, because it feels like it's got a lot in it. I don't know what it is, but there's a little white artifact here that's clearly not meant to be overlaying the image. I don't know if that's just on my screen, but there's clearly something there that's, I think, from Photoshop, because it's not transparent. Like that's where the gun should be. It's very odd. I just noticed it as we've been scrolling up and down. But and then Tim, what's your take on this guy?
I don't like it.
It's okay, Tim. We'll buy 2 boxes. I'll take this part. I'll take this one.
Take a second one.
Yeah, I'll take a second one of you. There you go. I'll buy it off you from the box.
I just think it looks stupid, to be honest. Like, I know it's supposed to be orky, and I know they're wacky and they're crazy. I think it's because a part of me wanted to see a mechanical squig-off, because I love the squig-off model from the 412 old team.
Well, this is a mechanical squig.
Not a squig-off, though.
Got. No, I know.
Stop mincing my words, Phil. And I don't know, it just looks... Again, it's that orky design, and so yes, it does look cumbersome and it shouldn't work, but as we know with Ork technology, you just have to believe in it and it will work. But this is maybe just a step too far in my mind. I just feel like it'll just fall flat on its face every time. It's kind of like Ed 209 from RoboCop,
I
but
was
a
just about
worse
to.
version.
I was about to say it looks like Ed 209 in terms of its cumbersome. Like I imagine it's rocking back and forth as
Right.
it moves and spins around and what have you.
And I think I guess I just would have liked to have seen it in a 4-legged version, like maybe more of like an 80/80 kind of design, at a Squig Off.
Maybe we
Yeah.
will. Maybe could you
Maybe we
imagine?
will.
Could you imagine if we're not getting a new war truck, but we're going to get like a 4-legged squig off thing instead of a war truck?
Maybe.
I think
Yeah.
I think in all honesty, if you maybe like change the front of it where the rockets are coming out, and maybe change that to more of a face.
Put the rockets on the side or something.
Yeah, just to balance it out a little bit more. It probably wouldn't irk me as much.
It does. Well, if you look sideways, it is sort of. I guess it is sort of balanced because you've got all the fuel and the engine, I guess, and the exhaust is like a counterweight. But it does. There's a lot happening at the front as well. But if you took away the rockets, it would be more of a classic silhouette of just a single gun up top, perhaps. So maybe you're right. Maybe that would do something for it. Cool. Have you guys got any more to add on the Big Mech Dakar rig?
Not from me.
One thing I was tempted to say, I was just trying to look at the existing minis in the range to see if it's something new they've done specifically in this one. But you can definitely see lots of welding in this mini, of like stuff that's been of like between the joints and like the metal, like the kind of spikes coming out the front. You can see the way it's been where like they've had to take a welder to that to get that on, with some of the pipes
along
welded
there.
together.
Yeah, that's cool. Cool little detail.
And I don't know if that's I don't know if this is the first time they've done. Yeah, it's definitely the first time I've really noticed it. But yeah, I just think it looks really good. This is one of those minis which I both love and I loathe, because I hate sub-assemblies because it takes me ages to paint minis and I like to just blitz it out.
Yeah.
But this is one of those, I'm going to have to paint this in different pieces and then put it together.
I think so. I don't know how easy it would be to do that. I sort of hope it is possible for that reason. But as you say, again, that was my sort of thing with the whole army. It looks beautiful and I would like it, but it's very intimidating from a painting point of view because it's just got so much detail on and it would take a long time to paint up, I think. And with that, I presume we can move on to the end bit where there's some final photos of everything showing off alongside those what are they called, Gorkamorts?
Gorkamorts or Morkanauts.
Morkanauts, yeah, that just don't look that great. I don't think they're just not quite as ramshackle, but I don't know. Then we've got them painted up in their different sort of sub-factions. Interesting when it's all red. There, I would say it doesn't look very good. I don't think. It just looks too plain, but it kind of goes to show you how much sort of freehand detail they put on that original one. And then, a blue version. Yeah, I guess here you can see a bit more of the size of the scale of the war boss with the regular orcs. And actually, those regular orcs are quite small. But yeah, in summary, I mean, I feel like I've said enough about the orcs in terms of I'd be very tempted to own them. Don't really want to paint them. In a way, maybe I just want like the war boss because I think he's probably my favorite mini out of a lot. And then the regular orc knobs look really cool, and then some of the other characters a bit hit miss. But they are all very cool, and I think they're very exciting as a range overall. And for that reason, feel like the more exciting half of the range. Tim, what is your take on the orcs?
Overall, I think it's a really nice range, and there's some lovely design nods to the old second edition and going forward. I still feel like there's a few more kits that they could have updated that you can see in the background.
Well, that might come. I think that might come.
Which is always a fingers crossed moment. I will probably pick one or two key characters up just to paint. Like I like the idea of just painting the Orc Boy's knob. I think that's a pretty cool model, as Rich pointed out.
And then Richie, as the Orc aficionado, what's your take?
I think they look fantastic. They look really cool. One thing I should give a shout out to is on the images of like the different paint jobs. On the Warhammer community article, you can see I think it's the Death Skulls. It's the blue one. The blue one is cool because they show what the what's it called? I've already forgotten what it's called. The Dakar rig. On the Dakar rig, they painted it the way I would paint an Orc vehicle, which is each panel is a different color.
Oh yeah,
like it's been put together. And also, it's actually got. It kind of makes me want to take back some of the things I said earlier. Well, not take back because I stand by what I said on the Weird Boy, because the Weird Boy there looks really cool. The paint job they've done on the Weird Boy in this, and who's in the back there, that looks a cool Weird Boy. That version I like. So I think some of it will come down to the paint jobs. I think this is a really cool box. Even the Space Marines, who I'd be so inclined to say, they look really cool. For Space Marines, but I just love the Orcs. The Orcs you get in this box are all so cool.
Yeah, what's interesting is they've basically painted up the Orcs 4 times in each of the different colours, which is a big ask. Obviously, you can sort of tell that these ones aren't painted up to quite the heavy metal standard, and it's more the army painters. But there's still a lot of models and a lot of people involved in painting them up just to show you an alternative paint scheme. I mean, that's quite an impressive effort, especially when all so far you're seeing is one photo. But I'm sure in the books and in the codexes there'll be more photos of them. But it's great to see the different options. Well, is that everyone's final thoughts on the box?
Yeah.
Okay, because we were thinking. That's good, because we were thinking about talking about the campaign book and the contents like the cards and stuff, but as we've already talked long enough on the Marines and the Orcs, we'll call it there, and we'll go on to a little bit of an outro. So transitional noise. Welcome back. It's just me now for the 5-star review. The other two they've not gone to bed, but they've gone off to enjoy their lovely afternoon while I carry on with the last bit of the show just on my own. So yes, 5-star review coming up now. We've taken this from the YouTube comments because, as I mentioned in the previous episode, I've started to take some 5-star YouTube comments because you can't always leave them in other places, and a lot of the people might be watching along on YouTube. So this one comes from episode 234 from John Wills 4661. His 5-star review says, "Love the podcast. The amount of effort and research you put in shines through like one of the 5 stars. Always look forward to a video show up on my subscription feed. Thanks and keep going. Had to do the review like this because I'm not on Apple Podcast app. Hope it reaches you. If not, it's a bit of interaction for your video, I guess." So yeah, thank you, John. I do greatly appreciate it. It's as I said, I'm doing these YouTube 5 stars because, as you rightly pointed out, a lot of people aren't on the podcast stuff and that they're finding us just on the YouTubes. So greatly appreciate it. Glad you enjoy the effort that we put into some of the episodes. I'm saying we, like there's, I mean, sometimes it's a we, sometimes it's a me. This episode was a we. I appreciate them, and I'm sure any 5-star reviews aimed at Richie and Tim will also be greatly appreciated by them. If you yourself would like to leave a 5-star review, you can do it over on Apple Podcasts, over on Audible, Spotify. I think you can just leave 5 stars, but you can't leave an actual review, so we can't read anything out there. And likewise, if you're over on the YouTubes, you can leave us a 5-star comment. Make sure you title it 5 stars, and I'll hopefully pick up on it and add it to the list of 5 stars that I am reading out. There's a few left, so please keep it up because it's just greatly appreciated, basically. If you would like to support the show in other ways, you can obviously like and subscribe. You can share it with your friends. You can comment on either the YouTube or social media posts that we do. Any form of interaction is greatly appreciated. Lastly, you can buy some merch, or you can head over to Patreon and back the show over on there, and all of that money goes towards supporting the show. Hopefully you've noticed the slightly better camera setup, and that's because I finally got the new laptop, which was basically funded by you guys, so that's greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. It did also make recording so much easier, which was the main issue before. Basically, my old laptop did not have the processing power to handle recording Tim, Richie, and a screen plus me all at the same time. But this time it was seamless. So that actually made our recording a lot more speedier, because last time it added an extra half an hour at least to the show, trying to sort out all the technical issues each time, because it had a mini crash between each section. So that's greatly appreciated. So yeah, please do keep supporting the show. It means a lot and makes carrying on the show a lot easier. So yeah, that's it for the 5 stars, I believe. I don't think there's anything else to say. I'll do a mini outro where I'll just have a quick ramble, and I'll see you there in a second. Transitional noise. So it's the last bit of a show, the outro. Again, it's just me. This one is really going to be just a super short outro, just to effectively say farewell. I would have liked it to be a slightly longer episode where we could have talked about the books and the cards. I'm really excited about those personally. I think that'd be one of the key selling points to the box, basically, and sound like they're quite good additions to the game. Hopefully we'll talk about that in a bit more detail in a later episode. However, I didn't want the episode to go on too long, mostly because Tim and Richie had better things to be doing on their day. I'm also madly busy painting up my Nighthaunt army for the grand tournament in Nottingham, where I'll be on the weekend this episode comes out. So ideally, I need to really be painting, not editing a podcast, but I've determined to make sure I can do both, basically. But I'm making reasonably good headway on the Nighthaunt. I've got 35 models to paint up. I'm mostly there with some of them. The Mongol, which is the big giant. In fact, you can see it here because on my new camera should show it up a bit nicer. So it's currently looking this slightly garish color, but it's going to be, this is the dark tones, the shadows, and then it's going to be airbrushed with some much lighter colors. So mostly it's going to be airbrush work. So should look a bit nicer by the end, but that's the main one I've got to get painted up. Everything else is in a much better condition. If I go grab one. So, for example, I've got the Lord Executioner here, which you can see if I just put my hand in front so you can see a bit more contrast. I need to do some washes on it still, and I'd like to airbrush a bit of transition on the axe between the spectral ghostly stream, and then I need to do some texture paint on the base and just do the rim, but everything else is done. It says washes at this stage, and I'm sort of midway through the washes when it comes to all the other models, which is the 20 chain rasps. Well, actually it's 21 because I had a spare one and I've converted one up, so I've got a hero model if I want to have it as 2 separate units of 10 or 1 unit of 20, so that's why I ended up with an extra one. I don't know really why I bothered doing that, but that's what I ended up doing. So I've got 21 models of those. I've got 10 Craven Throne Garde, which are the biggest pain to paint up because there is so much detail on those models. The crossbows has loads of detail on them. Each one has loads of sort of detail on the model in terms of you've got the cloak, but also you've got some chainmail hanging down and chainmail showing through holes in the hoods. Some of them are wearing helmets. Then they're all carrying satchels, and each satchel is carrying a sidearm, like a sword or an axe. And then that's got the arrows in it as well inside that satchel. And there's just a bunch of extra detail. And they're also holding the crossbow in a way which makes it very difficult to get inside to paint the rear side of the crossbow. And, you know, with a Space Marine, that's not normally a problem. Because they're spectral ghosts, there's plenty of gaps and holes where you can see through to the rear of the weapon. So it's very difficult, basically having to poke a tiny brush through a hole and try and paint all of those up. And you can't really build it in sub-assemblies either because of the way the ghosts are built without there being hideous mold lines. So you need to sort of build it all to clean up all the mold lines so they're all smooth, because, ghosts shouldn't have visible mold lines in them. And so, yeah. In addition to that, there's 2 chain ghast models, which are like these mini characters, and then 1 Lord Executioner, which is the one I've just shown you, plus the Mongol, which is the giant, which I've just shown you. So that's what I'm painting up new to go into my army for the grand tournament. The next episode, all things crossed, fingers at ready, we will be talking about that grand tournament in that episode. Tim and Richie will be on. Dan, who will be in attendance, contractually not allowed to join the podcast, so I'm sure we can reference what he got up to, but sadly he can't join us. But it should be an exciting weekend up in Warhammer World. If, for example, you happen to live in the area and want to come say hello to us, by all means, do so. We will be about on those days. There's some other exciting things happening in the world. I think I should just quickly mention John Blanche's On Guard has just hit Kickstarter. Now, originally it was pitched as a 4mm scale dueling game, basically 2 giant models, 4mm scale, which is the same scale as the old Inquisitor game. And obviously it's John Blanche who did the old original game as well. And then Thomas Pyrium, who's been behind More Time, but also more recently Trench Crusade. He's doing the game design itself for the dueling game. John Blanche has done the kind of concept work and the art for the miniatures. Other artists have been involved in terms of sculpting the miniatures. So this Kickstarter is just for the 54mm scale miniatures. Sadly, doesn't actually cover the game itself, which I was a little bit disappointed by. So I think this is called On Guard Vanguard, I think it was called. Basically, a it's a Kickstarter for the miniatures, and then if this is a success, there will be another Kickstarter for the full game. The miniatures themselves are a mixture of resin with some bits being cast in metal, specifically for the weapons, because they thought they might be a bit too fragile in resin. Part of me was a bit disappointed by it, because I think I would have rather it just be all resin and deal with the issue of some bits being a bit fragile, because ultimately for me, while I'm really interested in the rules, I probably wouldn't play it that much other than once or twice. For me, they're display pieces. The models are a mixture of sort of pirates and sort of Marie Antoinette style, charlatans and nobility with like rapiers and things like that, but with a kind of corrupted twist to it. One of them is like a sort of zombie pirate character. They all look really interesting. I would love to be able to buy them all, but it's like $250 or something for the full set of, I think it's 7 miniatures, or it's 7 plus the special miniature. And one of the special miniatures is like the main one you see in all the promo artwork. He looks phenomenal. He's like the real pirate vagabond. He's the one I really want, but you can't easily buy him. You've got to either buy him as an add-on for one of the others, or you've got to buy them all as a set. But he's basically more expensive than all the others. So I think I might just buy 1 or 2 of the models, one to support the guys involved, but also to support the game. But also because I'd like just a few of those miniatures to own and paint up one day, and sort of own a piece of history as well, I think, because I think it'll be really interesting to see where it'll go. I think the Kickstarter's already fulfilled. There's definitely a stretch goal, which is another model, but I don't think they've reached that just yet, or at least at the time of recording. I think Kickstarter's been out for 2 days now. So by the time you've listened to this, by all means, On Guard, ENGAURD, I believe. And you should hopefully find the Kickstarter. It should still be going for a few more weeks, I believe. So yeah, I thought I would just mention that, because that was something that definitely interested me, and I've been following it along. There's a Facebook page, at least, which is where I've been getting all the info about it, that you can join and follow, and you can see all the art and stuff like that. So I would check out that if you want to know more. And I think that's it. I'm not going to say any more. Next week, next episode, in 2 weeks' time, we will be discussing the Age of Sigmar Grand Tournament, how we've all done, how terrible we did, but how much we enjoyed it is probably going to be the summary of that episode. And if there's anything exciting 40k news related in between, then we might have time to cram it in. Next episode, I should be a bit more free in terms of my time, in terms of editing and production. This one was a little bit rushed because of all the painting I've got to do. So I do apologise for that. I will try better next time. Transitional noise? No, not a transitional noise. What am I on about? Goodbye, everyone. Bye-bye.